Don't act out of anger or ego. Anger and ego are two forces that promise power but deliver destruction. Sun Tzu warned that a commander who allows these emotions to dictate his actions becomes blind to strategy, vulnerable to provocation, and easy to defeat. In ancient battles, a single decision made out of rage could doom an entire army. In modern life, the consequences are just as real. Acting from anger leads you into conflicts you didn't need, words you can't take back, and decisions that damage your future. Acting from ego traps you in battles meant only to protect pride, not progress. Both emotions distort your vision, making you mistake impulsiveness for courage and recklessness for strength. Anger is a fire that spreads faster than reason. When it ignites, it pushes you to react, to strike, to prove something in the heat of the moment. But Sun Tzu understood that the person who can be provoked easily is already defeated. Anger narrows your awareness. It exaggerates threats, erases nuance, and convinces you that immediate action is necessary even when it isn't. Modern life is full of moments that trigger this fire. Insults, disrespect, betrayal, frustration. But every time you act while your mind is burning, you give your power away. Decisions made in anger often solve nothing. They simply create new problems layered on top of the old ones. Ego is no less dangerous. It whispers that you must win every argument, prove every point, protect your pride at all costs. Sun Tzu viewed ego as a fatal flaw, a crack in armor that an enemy could exploit. When ego leads, you stop thinking strategically. You take risks you shouldn't, refuse to walk away when it's wise, and drain your energy fighting battles that don't matter. Ego makes you fragile. It demands constant validation and reacts with hostility to anything that threatens your image. In this state, you forget the bigger picture. You forget that most victories worth having require humility, not domination. True strength comes from restraint. Sun Tzu valued leaders who could stand still in the face of provocation, who could see beyond the emotional sting of the moment, who could choose actions that served the long-term strategy rather than the immediate satisfaction of retaliation. When you refuse to act out of anger or ego, you reclaim your clarity. You think with precision. You evaluate the situation based on reality, not emotion. Your decisions become deliberate rather than reactive, controlled rather than chaotic. There's immense power in being unprovocable. When anger cannot sway you and ego cannot control you, people lose the ability to manipulate you. You become harder to corner, harder to read, harder to defeat. You begin to respond to life with intelligence rather than impulse. Conflicts dissolve faster. Relationships stabilize. Opportunities open that anger and ego would have destroyed. Sun Tzu's wisdom reveals a truth that echoes far beyond the battlefield. The strongest person is not the one who strikes hardest, but the one who chooses when and whether to strike at all. Anger and ego erupt quickly. Wisdom arrives quietly. And when you act from wisdom instead of emotion, you gain a kind of power that no outburst or victory of pride can ever match. Be where the opponent least expects you. Sun Tzu taught that the greatest victories come from striking at the precise moment and place your opponent is unprepared for. Predictability is a weakness. Surprise is a weapon. On the ancient battlefield, appearing where the enemy least expected could shatter their confidence, disrupt their plans, and create openings that sheer force could never achieve. In modern life, this principle becomes a powerful form of strategy, the ability to move in ways that others do not anticipate, to evolve when they assume you'll stay the same, and to make decisions that break free from patterns that once held you captive. People fall into predictable habits, emotionally, professionally, socially. They react the same way, think the same way, pursue the same paths, and let the world assume they will always operate within those limits. Predictability makes you easy to counter. easy to manipulate, and easy to underestimate. Sun Tzu understood that when you act in expected ways, you hand your power to others. But when you shift your behavior, your mindset, your direction, quietly and deliberately, you regain control over the field. Being where the opponent least expects you does not always mean confrontation. Sometimes the opponent is your past self, your old habits, your fears, or the people who assume they know your limits. When you break your own patterns, you create new possibilities. You take a path that surprises even you. You become harder to define, harder to predict, and much harder to stop. Sun Tzu would call this strategic flexibility, the ability to adapt, transform, and reposition your energy in ways that create advantage rather than vulnerability. This principle also applies to emotional conflict. When someone expects you to react with anger, calmness disarms them. When someone tries to provoke you, silence confuses them. When someone believes you will chase, you stop. When someone assumes you will fold, you stand firm. By refusing to play the role others assign to you, you reclaim the balance of power. Sun Tzu valued psychological warfare as much as physical strategy, and in modern relationships and interactions, your ability to respond unexpectedly becomes a silent force that shifts control back into your hands. Innovation is another form of strategic unpredictability. Moving into new skills, new environments, or new opportunities surprises those who doubted you. People who expected you to fail cannot track you when you evolve faster than their assumptions. Sun Tzu believed that changing tactics was essential for victory, and in your life, changing direction can be the very thing that unlocks growth. When you stop living within the obvious path, you become someone who rises through creativity rather than conformity. The essence of this lesson is simple. Never allow your life to be guided by what others expect from you. Surprise becomes strength, adaptability becomes advantage, and the moment you learn to reposition yourself when life pressures you into a corner, you embody Sun Tzu's wisdom fully. Being where the opponent least expects you is not just a tactic. It is a way of moving through the world with intelligence, strategy, and a quiet kind of power that few can anticipate and none can easily defeat. Disrupt others' plans while protecting your own. Sun Tzu taught that victory often depends not only on executing your strategy, but on quietly dismantling the enemy's ability to execute theirs. A plan, once disrupted, becomes fragile. Its timing breaks, its confidence weakens, and its momentum dissolves. In modern life, the enemy is rarely a person. It's competition, adversity, or circumstances that work against your progress. Yet the principle remains unchanged. You must guard your own plans with discipline and caution while staying aware of forces that might undermine them. At the same time, you gain advantage by understanding the intentions of others and gently interrupting anything that could threaten your goals. Sun Tzu's wisdom reveals that strategy is not just about forward motion. It's about preventing others from moving against you. Most people broadcast their intentions without realizing it. They speak too soon about their goals, reveal too much about their progress, or expose vulnerabilities that make it easy for others to interfere. Sun Tzu would see this as leaving your battle map open on the table for the enemy to study. Protecting your plans means shielding them from unnecessary eyes, building in silence, and allowing your actions, not your announcements, to reveal your direction. When your plans remain private, they remain safe. They grow without the contamination of criticism, jealousy, or sabotage. They evolve in peace, and peace gives them strength. But Sun Tzu also understood that awareness of others' intentions gives you control. In modern life, this awareness is not about malice. It is about intelligence. When you understand what others are planning, you can anticipate how their actions might impact your own path. You can spot when someone's goals collide with yours, when a rival is gaining ground, or when a situation is shifting in ways that could block your momentum. Sometimes disruption is subtle, adjusting your timing, taking an opportunity earlier than expected, or stepping into a space before someone else does. Other times it means creating uncertainty around another person's advantage, forcing them to rethink, hesitate, or redirect their energy in ways that lighten the pressure on you. Sun Tzu valued disruption because it breaks rhythm, and rhythm is where strategy gains its power. When someone has a smooth, uninterrupted path, their confidence grows and their execution sharpens. But a well-timed disruption, an unexpected move, a shift in direction, a withholding of information forces them to adapt on the spot. Adaptation creates delay. Delay creates weakness. Weakness creates opportunity. In your own life, this can be as simple as staying unpredictable, refusing to reveal your next step, or moving faster than the competition expects. Yet Sun Tzu's lesson carries a deeper message. The goal is not to destroy others' plans. It is to protect your own from being overshadowed, overtaken, or dismantled. When you stay aware of the landscape around you, when you understand the motives and movements of others, you navigate life with sharper instincts. You move strategically instead of impulsively. You secure your progress instead of risking it. The one who wins is not always the strongest. It is often the one whose plans remain intact, while others are quietly thrown off balance. Act decisively once your direction is clear. Hesitation is a silent enemy. Sun Tzu taught that once clarity is achieved, once the terrain is understood, the strategy chosen, and the destination set, a commander must move with unwavering decisiveness. In war, delay gives the enemy time to prepare, reposition, or strike first. In modern life, the danger is far quieter but equally destructive. Hesitation erodes confidence, invites doubt, and dissolves opportunities that were within reach. A clear direction loses its power the moment you second-guess it. Sun Tzu understood that clarity is only half the victory. The other half is the courage to act the moment clarity arrives. Most people spend their lives trapped between knowing and doing. They analyze, overthink, and endlessly rehearse future scenarios, waiting for the perfect moment that never comes. Sun Tzu warned that perfection is an illusion. Conditions will never line up flawlessly, and those who wait for certainty will be overtaken by those who act with conviction. Once you know your path, hesitation becomes the battlefield where your dreams slowly bleed out. Decisive action, even imperfect, generates momentum. It transforms intention into progress, vision into movement, and potential into reality. Acting decisively does not mean acting recklessly. Sun Tzu was a master of cautious preparation before bold execution. He studied the enemy, calculated risks, assessed strength, and ensured his strategy had purpose. But once the preparation was complete, he moved without fear. In your life, decisiveness means the same thing. Prepare, learn, evaluate. But the moment your path becomes clear, step into it with full commitment. The courage to begin is often more important than the plan itself. Movement reveals answers that contemplation never could. Indecision drains energy. It keeps you in a constant loop of what if, feeding anxiety and weakening your resolve. Sun Tzu believed that uncertainty weakens leadership because it spreads confusion through the ranks. In your own mind, indecision does the same. It creates internal conflict, dividing your energy between action and doubt. But when you commit to a direction, your thoughts align, your emotions stabilize, and your actions become purposeful. Clarity, followed by decisiveness, creates a psychological strength that carries you through obstacles with far more ease. There is also a deeply empowering truth in acting decisively. It teaches you that you can trust yourself. Every time you choose a direction and take action, you strengthen your inner authority. You stop depending on external validation. You stop waiting for permission. You begin to feel the quiet power of someone who moves with intention. Sun Tzu valued leaders who inspired confidence through decisive action, because decisive action signals mastery, not of circumstances, but of oneself. Life rewards movement. Opportunities appear for those already in motion. Doors open for those willing to knock. Strength grows in those who dare to step forward. Sun Tzu's wisdom reveals that clarity without action is wasted potential, but clarity paired with decisive movement becomes unstoppable force. Once your direction is clear, hesitation serves no purpose. Action becomes the path to victory. Information is power. Gather it continuously. Knowledge has always been the silent weapon that determines who rises and who falls. Sun Tzu understood this with absolute clarity. The general who knows more sees more, and the one who sees more controls the outcome. Armies did not win by strength alone. They won by intelligence networks, by studying their opponents, by observing terrain, by gathering every piece of information that could shift advantage. In modern life, this principle is even more vital. The world moves fast, people change quickly, and situations evolve in ways you don't expect. If you stop learning, stop observing, stop paying attention, you step into battles blind while others are gathering the insights that will determine your fate. Information is not just data, it is awareness. It is knowing what motivates people, understanding the dynamics of your environment, recognizing shifts in energy, noticing patterns in behavior, and listening more than you speak. Sun Tzu believed that the smallest detail could decide the largest victory. Today, the details of your own life work the same way. The person who observes quietly often sees the truth long before it becomes obvious. The person who listens deeply catches the things others miss. The person who keeps learning becomes impossible to corner because they evolve faster than challenges can overwhelm them. Gathering information protects you from manipulation. When you understand someone's intentions, they can't deceive you easily. When you know the landscape you're stepping into, surprises lose their power. When you study trends, motives, emotions, and possibilities, you develop a psychological map that guides you with precision. Sun Tzu valued intelligence because it transformed uncertainty, the greatest enemy, into strategy. In your life, the same transformation happens. The more you know, the less chaotic everything becomes. But information is not something you collect once. It is something you gather continuously. Sun Tzu taught that conditions change, people adapt, and the truth evolves. A general who relied on old knowledge was already defeated. Likewise, relying on who someone used to be, what a situation used to look like, or what you used to know blinds you to the present reality. The world is fluid, people shift, opportunities open and close. Power belongs to those who stay aware. There is also a deeper empowerment that comes from learning. The more information you gather, the more confident and grounded you become. Decisions feel easier because they are informed, not guessed. Conversations become meaningful because you understand both what is said and what is left unsaid. Life becomes less about reacting and more about anticipating. Sun Tzu believed that foresight was the highest form of intelligence, the ability not only to see what is happening, but what could happen next. When you commit to gathering information continuously, you become someone who moves through life with intention, not impulse. You navigate challenges with calm clarity. You see dangers before they grow and opportunities before they fade. And like Sun Tzu's most formidable commanders, you gain a quiet power, the power of knowing more, seeing deeper, and acting with the advantage that only true awareness can provide. Maintain flexibility even with a solid plan. Sun Tzu taught that no matter how flawless a strategy seems on paper, reality will always introduce variables that cannot be predicted. A general who clings rigidly to his plan, refusing to adapt when conditions shift, is already defeated. In war, the weather changes, the enemy moves unpredictably, terrain becomes treacherous, and alliances shift without warning. Victory belongs to the commander who can pivot without losing direction, who can adjust without losing purpose. In modern life, this same truth governs every goal, every ambition, every path you choose. Plans create direction, but flexibility creates survival. People often fall in love with their plans. They build their identities around them, attach their pride to them, and measure their worth by how perfectly life follows the script they wrote. But life rarely respects those scripts. Obstacles appear, timing shifts, opportunities emerge in unexpected places, doors close without warning. When you cling too tightly to a single vision, you blind yourself to the better paths unfolding around you. Sun Tzu understood that rigidity destroys potential. A strategy must breathe, evolve, and reshape itself in response to the world. Flexibility does not mean abandoning discipline. It means staying aware, alert, and willing to adjust your approach when circumstances demand it. Sun Tzu valued leaders who could recognize when a plan was failing early enough to change course before it became fatal. In your life, this means letting go of the belief that there is only one right way or one ideal outcome. It means understanding that progress is not linear. It bends, shifts, and requires you to think beyond the comfort of certainty. When you embrace flexibility, you transform challenges into opportunities rather than dead ends. A rigid mind breaks under pressure. A flexible one bends and survives. When setbacks arise, unexpected changes in relationships, career shifts, health challenges, financial obstacles, the rigid mind panics, loses faith, and fights reality. The flexible mind adapts, reassesses, and redirects. Sun Tzu saw adaptability as a form of intelligence, a strategic strength that allows you to continue moving forward, even when the ground beneath you changes shape. Flexibility keeps you from becoming trapped in outdated assumptions. It frees you to reinvent yourself instead of resisting growth. The most powerful plans are the ones that accept the inevitability of change. When you prepare yourself mentally for the unexpected, you stop fearing it. You move with a sense of ease, responding to life rather than resisting it. This is how you remain steady even as your circumstances shift, because your direction is rooted in purpose, not perfection. Sun Tzu believed that adaptability was the essence of survival. In modern life, it becomes the essence of resilience. When you maintain flexibility, you gain a quiet advantage over those who cling desperately to certainty. You see options they overlook. You remain calm where others crumble. You pivot while they freeze. And through that fluidity, you inch closer to your goals, not by forcing life to follow your plan, but by allowing your plan to evolve with life. Sun Tzu's wisdom reveals the deeper truth. Stability comes not from rigidity, but from the ability to adjust without losing sight of where you are ultimately meant to go. Don't reveal weakness unnecessarily. Sun Tzu understood that the slightest display of weakness could shift the balance of an entire war. A crack in the armor, a moment of hesitation, a sign of fear. These were invitations for the enemy to press harder, strike faster, and exploit vulnerabilities that might otherwise have remained harmless. In modern life, weakness does not mean having emotions or imperfections. It means exposing those vulnerabilities to people or environments that have not earned the right to see them. Sun Tzu's wisdom teaches that while honesty with trusted allies strengthens you, revealing weaknesses to the wrong audience can become a weapon turned against you. In today's world, people often mistake openness for strength, thinking that vulnerability shown to anyone is a sign of emotional maturity. But Sun Tzu would warn that your weaknesses are sacred information, details about your insecurities, triggers, doubts, and fears that can be misinterpreted, misused, or amplified by those who do not genuinely care for your well-being. When you reveal such parts of yourself too quickly or too widely, you create opportunities for manipulation, judgment, or exploitation. Weakness shown in unsafe places becomes ammunition for others' agendas. Sun Tzu believed that a leader should remain composed and unreadable, not to appear invincible, but to maintain control over how others perceive him. In life, this is not about pretending to be perfect. It is about choosing wisely who deserves access to your inner world. When you hold your posture steady in challenging moments, you prevent others from sensing an opportunity to undermine you. When you manage your emotions instead of wearing them unfiltered in hostile settings, you protect your peace and preserve your influence. Even subtle cues, uncertainty in your voice, insecurity in your posture, desperation in your decisions, can shift dynamics in ways that weaken your position. At the heart of this lesson is self-respect. Weakness is not something to hide from yourself, but something to understand privately before offering it to someone trustworthy. Sun Tzu's philosophy suggests that the battlefield is not the place for confession, and in modern life, neither are competitive environments, unstable relationships, or social settings where motives are unclear. Protecting your weaknesses means strengthening them behind the scenes, developing yourself quietly, and sharing only with those who have proven their loyalty and wisdom over time. Strength grows in privacy long before it is visible in public. Yet there is a deeper layer to this wisdom. Your energy follows your exposure. The more you broadcast your insecurities, the more you reinforce them in your own mind. But when you hold your ground and refrain from revealing every fear or doubt, you give yourself the space to solve problems internally, gaining confidence and emotional discipline. You also maintain the advantage of unpredictability. People cannot easily manipulate or destabilize someone whose weaknesses they cannot read. Sun Tzu teaches that concealment is not deception, it is protection. Your weaknesses should be tended, understood, and healed, but they should not be displayed without purpose. When you reveal them unnecessarily, you give others power over your narrative. When you guard them wisely, you keep the power for yourself. Take advantage of timing. When others are unprepared, opportunities rarely appear because of strength. They appear because of timing. Sun Tzu taught that the most effective victories come from striking, not when you are the strongest, but when your opponent is the least ready. In war, this meant attacking at dawn when the enemy was exhausted, launching maneuvers during storms they feared, or advancing when they believed you were retreating. Timing wasn't luck, it was strategy. In modern life, the principle holds the same quiet power. When others are distracted, doubtful, or asleep to possibility, the person who moves at the right moment gains an advantage that force alone could never provide. Most people wait for the perfect moment, unaware that perfection is simply preparation meeting timing. Sun Tzu observed that an unprepared enemy collapses under pressure because they have not anticipated the strike. In your life, this translates into recognizing the moments when circumstances tilt in your favor, when others hesitate, when competition rests, when opportunities sit unnoticed, when people underestimate you. These moments are rare, subtle, and easy to miss if you're not paying attention. But if you see them and you move, you can leap forward while everyone else remains still. Timing is the art of reading the environment with precision. Sun Tzu mastered this by studying the patterns of weather, terrain, and human behavior. You master it by watching the shifts in your own world, emotional openings in conversations, gaps in the market, turning points in relationships, sudden chances that appear in moments of disorder. When others are overwhelmed or uncertain, they retreat mentally. That retreat creates space you can step into with intention. Acting at the right time doesn't require aggression, it requires awareness. There is also a psychological advantage in striking when others are unprepared. People expect resistance when they feel strong, but they crumble when caught off guard. Sun Tzu understood that timing breaks morale faster than force. In your life, this means seizing opportunities when doubt is at its peak, starting the project when most people give up, applying for the job when others assume they won't be chosen, speaking your truth when silence is expected, or making changes during moments when others feel stuck. These are the moves that shift your trajectory because they bypass competition entirely. Timing also protects you from burnout. Sun Tzu never wasted energy fighting unnecessary battles. He conserved strength until the moment promised real gain. Many people exhaust themselves pushing constantly, but wisdom lies in waiting strategically. When you act only when timing aligns, your effort multiplies in impact. You accomplish more, not by doing more, but by doing things when they matter most. This is the difference between force and finesse, between noise and victory. Sun Tzu's insight reveals a deeper truth. The world constantly cycles through moments of readiness and unpreparedness. When you learn to see these cycles and to act when others cannot, you gain a quiet, powerful edge. Strength matters, but timing turns strength into success. And those who move at the right moment often achieve in minutes what others fail to achieve in years. Appear strong when you are vulnerable. Appear vulnerable when you are strong. Perception shapes power as much as ability itself. Sun Tzu understood that in war, revealing your true condition, whether strength or weakness, was a dangerous mistake. Armies that appeared vulnerable invited attack. Armies that appeared invincible discouraged it. This principle extended beyond tactics and into psychology. The general who looked weak when strong could lure an enemy into overconfidence. The one who looked strong when weak could buy time, create hesitation, and protect what little advantage he had left. In modern life, this dynamic governs countless interactions, influencing relationships, negotiations, careers, and personal struggles more than people realize. When you are vulnerable, the instinct is often to show it openly, to seek comfort, reassurance, or validation. But exposing your fragility to those who haven't earned your trust gives them the power to shape your emotional landscape. Sun Tzu would warn that vulnerability in the wrong hands becomes a weapon against you. Appearing strong in your difficult moments doesn't mean pretending everything is perfect. It means carrying yourself with the dignity and composure that prevents others from exploiting your wounds. It means giving yourself time to heal without letting the world tear at your cracks. This inner steadiness creates psychological armor, protecting your spirit while you rebuild. The opposite is equally powerful. When you are strong, secure, prepared, and capable, showing a hint of openness or humility can disarm people in ways pure dominance never could. Sun Tzu knew that overwhelming strength can provoke fear, resistance, or rebellion. But appearing approachable, receptive, or even slightly vulnerable when you hold the advantage makes others underestimate your depth, lowers their defenses, and invites honest connection. It is a form of strategic softness, one that gives you visibility into motives, emotions, and intentions that would remain hidden if you carried yourself with unbroken hardness. Vulnerability, used wisely, becomes influence rather than weakness. There is a psychological elegance to this balance. When you appear strong in your weakest moments, you prevent chaos from expanding. You preserve your energy and dignity. You keep control over your narrative rather than handing it to those who might misuse it. And when you appear vulnerable while strong, you create space for trust, empathy, and insight. People speak more freely, reveal more openly, and show their true nature when they don't feel outpowered. Sun Tzu understood this as a form of intelligence, shaping the perceptions of others to gather information, prevent conflict, or establish alliances. Most people reveal their emotional state accidentally: anger when they feel powerless, arrogance when they feel insecure, silence when they feel overwhelmed. But mastering how and when you reveal strength or vulnerability gives you control over situations that would otherwise control you. It allows you to navigate social dynamics with the same subtlety Sun Tzu applied to battle strategy, not through deception, but through awareness. Awareness of human nature, of timing, of the emotional landscape around you. To appear strong when vulnerable is resilience. To appear vulnerable when strong is wisdom. Together, they form a psychological strategy that shapes perception, protects your spirit, and gives you influence without force. An art as relevant today as it was on the ancient fields where Sun Tzu forged his timeless truths. Reward, loyalty, and competence. Sun Tzu understood that an army is only as strong as the people who commit themselves to its success. He emphasized that those who show loyalty, discipline, and skill must be recognized, supported, and valued. Without this, even the most promising force collapses from within. In modern life, the same truth governs every environment. Your relationships, your career, your friendships, your personal projects. Loyalty and competence are rare, and when they appear, they must be acknowledged with the same strategic intention Sun Tzu brought to the battlefield. People who stand by you, who work with integrity, and who contribute meaningfully to your growth are assets more valuable than any material advantage. Many underestimate the power of recognition. Sun Tzu knew that soldiers who felt unseen or unappreciated lost morale quickly, but those who felt valued fought with fierce dedication. Today, the same psychology applies. When you reward loyalty, whether through appreciation, opportunity, respect, or trust, you strengthen the bond between you and those who support you. You create an environment where people want to give their best, not because they have to, but because they feel honored for doing so. Loyalty should never be taken for granted. It is a form of alignment that cannot be bought, only earned. Competence likewise deserves reward. Sun Tzu carefully selected and elevated individuals who demonstrated skill, wisdom, and reliability. He understood that empowering the capable strengthens the entire structure. But many people in modern life make the mistake of elevating those who are loud rather than those who are skilled, choosing familiarity over ability, or rewarding proximity rather than performance. This weakens teams, relationships, and long-term progress. When you reward competence, you reinforce excellence. You show that effort matters, that mastery is recognized, and that integrity is seen. Rewarding loyalty and competence also protects you from internal decay. Sun Tzu observed that neglecting worthy allies creates resentment, demotivation, and fragmentation. In your own life, when good people feel overlooked, they withdraw. They stop giving their best. They stop trusting, and eventually they leave. But when you honor their loyalty and recognize their contributions, you create a circle that becomes stronger with time. These people become your advisors, your supporters, your stabilizers, the ones who help you navigate chaos with clarity. There is another strategic dimension to this lesson. Rewarding loyalty and competence discourages those who thrive on manipulation, laziness, or inconsistency. It sends a clear message about your standards. Sun Tzu believed that an army reflects the values of its leader. By elevating those who embody strength and dedication, you shape your environment into one that naturally filters out the weak, the disloyal, and the destructive. Your life becomes a battlefield where only the strongest alliances survive. Ultimately, rewarding loyalty and competence is not just an act of gratitude, it is a strategy. It creates unity, inspires effort, and reinforces the behaviors that lead to long-term success. It ensures that the people around you are aligned with your mission rather than working against it. Sun Tzu's wisdom reveals a timeless truth. Your victories depend not only on your own strength, but on the strength of those who choose to stand with you. When you honor them, you fortify the foundation that every future success will stand upon. Correct mistakes quickly before they spread. Sun Tzu warned that small errors left unattended can grow into disasters that no amount of strength or strategy can undo. On the battlefield, a minor miscalculation, a missed signal, a poorly fortified flank, A delayed order could ripple outward until it endangers the entire army. In modern life, mistakes behave the same way. A small problem ignored becomes a crisis, a tiny conflict becomes a deep fracture, and a brief lapse in judgment becomes a habit that erodes your future. Sun Tzu's wisdom teaches that victory is not just about bold moves, but about immediate correction. The faster you confront a mistake, the more control you maintain over the outcome. People often hesitate to correct errors because admitting them feels like defeat. Pride interferes, fear of judgment stalls action, denial whispers that the problem will resolve itself. But Sun Tzu knew that delay is the most expensive decision of all. A mistake is weakest the moment it is born. If you address it then, with honesty, clarity, and decisive action, it dies quietly. If you avoid it, it grows in the dark. It multiplies. It complicates. It begins shaping the path ahead in ways you never intended. Correcting mistakes quickly is not an admission of weakness. It is a declaration of command over your life. In personal relationships, this principle is transformative. A careless comment, a misunderstanding, or a moment of neglect can harden into resentment if left unaddressed. Sun Tzu would call this letting the enemy fortify their position. The longer silence stretches, the deeper the wound becomes. When you acknowledge your mistake early, before emotions take root, you prevent a small issue from becoming emotional warfare. You preserve connection by stopping conflict at its source. In your goals and habits, the same truth applies. A single day of laziness can become a week if you don't correct it immediately. A poor decision around money, health, or discipline becomes a pattern if you let it slide. Sun Tzu valued momentum, and momentum is built by correcting deviations instantly. The sooner you realign yourself, the easier the path becomes. Every quick correction strengthens your discipline. Every delay weakens it. Mistakes in environments like work, business, or leadership spread even faster. A broken process, an overlooked detail, or a miscommunication can ripple outward until it affects the entire team. Here, Sun Tzu's principle becomes a shield. Identify the flaw, acknowledge it openly, and fix it before it evolves into something unmanageable. Leaders who correct problems quickly earn trust. Leaders who avoid problems create chaos. The speed of correction becomes a measure of strength. At its core, this wisdom is about mastery, not of perfection, but, of course, correction. Everyone makes mistakes. Sun Tzu never implied otherwise. The difference between those who rise and those who fall lies in response. When you act fast, you stop the spread. You stay ahead of the consequences. You turn a potential threat into a moment of growth. And you maintain the advantage where it matters most, in the steady direction of your own life. Avoid prolonged conflicts. They drain resources. Long battles destroy even the strongest armies. Sun Tzu warned that war dragged out over time becomes a silent poison, consuming supplies, weakening morale, and breaking the spirit of those involved. Victory fades the longer the conflict continues, and even the winning side pays a heavy price. In modern life, prolonged conflict takes a different form. Endless arguments, lingering grudges, unresolved tensions, draining relationships, and internal battles that stretch far beyond their purpose. These conflicts rob you of energy, peace, clarity, and the emotional strength needed to build your future. Sun Tzu's wisdom exposes the truth. Conflict that drags on is not a sign of endurance. It is a sign of strategic failure. Most people remain trapped in prolonged conflict because they mistake endurance for strength. They believe holding on proves commitment, pride, or resilience. But Sun Tzu understood that unnecessary conflict consumes far more than it gives. In life, this means every unresolved issue steals your focus. Every toxic argument you revisit drains your emotional reserves. Every resentment you carry weighs you down. The longer you stay in conflict, externally or internally, the more your ability to think clearly, act wisely, and move forward deteriorates. You begin fighting for the sake of fighting, not for the sake of resolution. Sun Tzu valued efficiency. He believed that the wisest generals end conflicts swiftly by using strategy, not exhaustion. In your own life, this translates into addressing the root of a problem instead of engaging in drawn-out battles. It means choosing communication over defensiveness, boundaries over arguments, and solutions over ego. When you resolve conflicts quickly, you protect your time, your mental health, and your resources. You keep your energy aligned with your goals instead of scattering it across emotional turmoil. Conflict handled swiftly strengthens you. Conflict prolonged weakens you. Prolonged conflict also creates emotional erosion. Sun Tzu taught that even victorious armies can be destroyed from the inside if they fight too long. Modern life reflects this in heartbreak that lingers for years, family tensions that never heal, workplace drama that drains your ambition, and personal struggles you avoid confronting. These long-running battles chip away at your confidence. They fill your mind with noise that drowns out creativity, peace, and purpose. When you allow conflict to live rent-free in your heart, it shapes your identity more than your aspirations do. Avoiding prolonged conflict doesn't mean avoiding responsibility. It means choosing resolution over chaos. Sun Tzu believed that true strength comes from ending battles before they consume your life. This might mean walking away from people who thrive on conflict, ending arguments that no longer serve growth, or stepping out of situations that demand endless emotional labor with no reward. It might also mean resolving inner conflicts by facing truths you've avoided, forgiving yourself for past mistakes, or letting go of battles you no longer need to fight. The wisdom is simple yet profound. Conflict is not meant to be a lifestyle. When it persists, it drains you more than any enemy could. Sun Tzu understood that victory belongs to those who conserve their strength for battles that matter. When you free yourself from prolonged conflict, you reclaim your energy, your clarity, and the power to build a life guided by strategy rather than emotional exhaustion. Focus on results, not noise. Success is rarely determined by how much noise surrounds you, but by how clearly you can see through it. Sun Tzu recognized this long before the modern world drowned itself in distractions. On the battlefield, commanders were often overwhelmed by rumors, fears, emotional outbursts, and the chaos of clashing forces. Those who focused on noise lost clarity. Those who focused on results won wars. Today, the noise is different. Opinions, criticism, drama, comparison, self-doubt, and the endless buzz of expectations. But its effect is the same. Noise scatters your attention. Results demand your discipline. Noise is anything that diverts you from the real objective. It comes from people who talk more than they act, from environments filled with confusion, and from your own fears disguised as urgent thoughts. Sun Tzu understood that reacting to noise is a guaranteed way to weaken yourself. When you pay attention to every distraction, you lose sight of the strategy that matters. The world encourages noise. It wants you to engage in pointless arguments, defend yourself against meaningless criticism, and waste energy on things that make no difference. But results require silence, focus, and the ability to filter out what is irrelevant. Focusing on results means knowing exactly what your mission is. Sun Tzu taught that armies collapsed when their goals became vague or emotional. The same happens in life. When you don't know what you're aiming for, everything feels important and every distraction feels urgent. But once your aim is clear, the noise loses its power. You stop reacting to every opinion. You stop chasing every opportunity. You stop getting pulled into every emotional current. You begin to move with intention, and intention cuts through chaos like a blade. There's also a discipline to ignoring noise that Sun Tzu valued deeply. He believed that successful leaders stayed steady when others panicked, calm when others argued, and focused when others scattered. This mindset translates into modern strength. the ability to keep working, keep improving, and keep pushing toward your goal even when surrounded by voices telling you it can't be done. Results come from consistency, not conversation. They come from action, not approval. They come from clarity, not chaos. Noise feeds your ego. Results feed your progress. Noise demands attention. Results demand effort. Noise feels urgent. Results feel important. When you choose results over noise, you stop living to impress others and start living to improve yourself. You stop explaining your goals and start executing them. You stop seeking validation for your intentions and start building proof through your actions. Sun Tzu's wisdom reveals a timeless truth. The battlefield is always loud, but victory goes to the one who listens only to what moves them forward. Focus on the outcome, not the opinions. Focus on the mission, not the distractions. Focus on results, and the noise will eventually fall silent. Use minimal effort for maximum impact. Sun Tzu mastered the art of achieving great results with the least possible expenditure of energy. He taught that true power lies not in exhausting yourself, but in positioning yourself so strategically that victory becomes effortless. On the battlefield, this meant striking only when the enemy was unprepared, conserving strength until the moment it would create decisive advantage, and avoiding unnecessary movement that weakened the army before the real fight even began. In modern life, this wisdom exposes a powerful truth. Success is not about doing the most. It is about doing what matters with precision, timing, and intention. People often glorify exhaustion, believing that being busy is the same as being effective. They pour effort into every direction, chasing results through force rather than strategy. But Sun Tzu knew that wasted energy is one of the greatest vulnerabilities. When you overextend yourself, your decisions become sloppy, your emotions become unstable, and your actions lose impact. Minimal effort does not mean laziness. It means mastery. It means understanding where your presence matters and where it doesn't. It means learning to strike at the right moment instead of swinging wildly just to feel productive. Using minimal effort for maximum impact requires clarity. You must know exactly what your objective is and which actions actually lead you there. Most people scatter their energy across tasks that look productive but accomplish nothing. Sun Tzu believed that every move should serve a strategic purpose, not just fill time. In your life, this means eliminating distractions, focusing on what truly shifts your reality, and refusing to waste energy on battles, conversations, or obligations that offer no meaningful return. Precision replaces chaos. Intention replaces impulse. Timing is also essential. Sun Tzu often waited for the perfect moment to act when the enemy was tired, disorganized, or off guard. In your world, timing transforms effort into impact. Saying the right words at the right time can resolve a conflict that endless arguing never would. Taking action when your mind is clear can accomplish in minutes what would take hours in a state of stress. Resting when your energy is low preserves your strength for the moment when it will matter most. Minimal effort becomes powerful when paired with strategic timing. There is also a psychological dimension to this principle. When you learn to conserve energy and move with intention, you become harder to predict and harder to overwhelm. You no longer exhaust yourself reacting to everything around you. You stop allowing urgency to dictate your decisions. Sun Tzu valued restraint because it creates control over your resources, your emotions, your environment. By using only the force necessary to achieve your aim, you maintain stability while others burn themselves out. The impact of this mindset extends far beyond efficiency. When you learn to achieve more with less, you free yourself from the frantic pace that wears people down. You create results that feel effortless, not because they are easy, but because you have trained yourself to act with the wisdom Sun Tzu taught, focused, deliberate, and sharply attuned to what truly matters. Minimal effort for maximum impact is the strategy of those who understand that victory is not earned through exhaustion, but through intelligent, intentional use of strength. Keep lines of communication clear and direct. Sun Tzu understood that miscommunication is one of the most destructive forces on any battlefield. A vague command, a misunderstood signal, or an unclear intention could send soldiers charging in the wrong direction or retreating when they should advance. Armies collapsed, not because they lacked strength, but because they lacked clarity. In modern life, the stakes look different, but the consequences are the same. When communication becomes cluttered, indirect, or inconsistent, relationships fracture, teams lose cohesion, and opportunities slip through the cracks. Sun Tzu's wisdom reveals a timeless truth. Clear communication is not merely a skill, it is a strategy that determines whether your efforts strengthen you or sabotage you. Most conflict today is born not from malice, but from misunderstanding. People assume instead of asking, hint instead of expressing, and expect others to read what was never spoken. But Sun Tzu would see this as a commander, whispering instructions into the wind, hoping the army somehow receives them. Clear communication removes guesswork. It eliminates confusion before it takes root. It turns chaos into order by ensuring everyone understands the goal, the path, and their role. When your words are precise instead of tangled, people respond with alignment instead of frustration. In relationships, whether personal or professional, indirect communication creates emotional fog. Unspoken expectations become silent resentments. Ambiguous words create assumptions that grow into conflict. Sun Tzu's philosophy reminds you that clarity is a form of respect. Saying what you truly mean, expressing your needs directly, and addressing issues before they fester creates stability and trust. When communication is honest and straightforward, connection becomes stronger because both parties are operating on the same map instead of two separate ones. In leadership and teamwork, clarity becomes even more critical. Sun Tzu believed that confusion among troops was the responsibility of the commander, not the soldiers. In modern settings, this translates into owning the responsibility of ensuring others understand your vision, your instructions, and your expectations. Poor communication forces people to fill in the gaps with their own interpretations, and those interpretations often lead the entire group off course. Clear direction, on the other hand, removes doubt and empowers everyone to move confidently toward a shared objective. But communication is not just about speaking clearly, it is also about listening. Sun Tzu studied his men carefully, understanding their concerns, their morale, and their unspoken fears. In your own life, clear communication requires this same attentiveness. You can only respond effectively when you understand fully. When you listen without assumptions, ask questions instead of guessing, and clarify before reacting, you prevent unnecessary conflict and strengthen relationships with those around you. Clear communication also protects your energy. When everything is understood the first time, you eliminate the emotional cost of repeated arguments, misinterpretations, and preventable drama. Sun Tzu would call this conserving resources, using precision to avoid battles entirely. The wisdom is simple but powerful. When your communication becomes clear and direct, your relationships grow stronger, your decisions sharpen, and your path forward becomes uncluttered. You move through life with fewer misunderstandings and more unity, turning every interaction into a strategic advantage rather than an emotional minefield. Observe quietly before acting loudly. Silence is a weapon in skilled hands. Sun Tzu taught that the general who watches before moving, who studies before striking, and who listens before speaking gains an advantage far greater than force. In war, noise reveals position, exposes intention, and gives the enemy clarity. Silence, on the other hand, conceals strength. and creates uncertainty. In modern life, this principle is just as powerful. When you observe quietly, whether in conversations, opportunities, conflicts, or relationships, you gather information others overlook. When you act loudly, only after understanding the full landscape, your actions carry weight, precision, and impact. Most people rush to speak, to react, to claim space without realizing that impulsive action exposes weakness. Sun Tzu warned that moving too soon, too loudly, or without understanding the situation allows the enemy to anticipate your next step. In everyday life, you give away your strategy when you talk too much. You reveal your plans when you boast. You show your vulnerabilities when you respond emotionally. Quiet observation protects you. It allows you to understand people's intentions, detect hidden motives, and see the truth behind their words. Silence becomes intelligence, intelligence that positions you for victory long before you take action. Quiet observation also sharpens your awareness. When you listen rather than interrupt, when you watch rather than assume, you begin to notice subtle patterns, shifts in tone, hesitation behind confidence, insecurity behind aggression, opportunity hiding in chaos. Sun Tzu believed that the wise general wins battles through knowledge, not noise. In your life, this means your greatest decisions come from seeing clearly, something only possible when you give yourself the stillness to understand what's really happening. Acting loudly without observation is guesswork. Acting loudly after observing is strategy. There is a psychological dimension to this wisdom. People underestimate the quiet ones. They assume silence means weakness, disinterest, or naivety. Sun Tzu used this assumption to his advantage, allowing enemies to misjudge his strength until it was too late. When you remain quietly observant, others reveal themselves to you while knowing nothing about you. They show their ego, their impatience, their intentions, and their vulnerabilities. When you finally act, you act from a place of knowledge while they act from assumption. That imbalance alone is enough to shift outcomes in your favor. Silence doesn't mean passivity. It means preparation. Sun Tzu prepared his moves carefully, then executed them with force and precision. In your life, this might mean waiting to speak until your point can't be ignored, applying for an opportunity after fully understanding the field, or responding to conflict only after studying the true cause. The power lies in timing, observing until the moment is right, then acting with conviction. Loud actions without quiet understanding create chaos. Loud actions rooted in deep observation create impact. This wisdom is timeless. Those who watch, learn. Those who rush, regret. When you choose to observe quietly first, you transform your actions from impulsive reactions into strategic decisions. And when you finally act, your voice, your choices, and your presence hit with the force of someone who knew exactly what they were doing all along. Strike only when success is highly probable. The difference between a reckless warrior and a strategic one lies not in courage, but in timing. Sun Tzu taught that the wisest generals did not attack simply because they were eager, emotional, or impatient. They attacked only when the conditions overwhelmingly favored victory. A strike made at the wrong moment, even with great strength, leads to unnecessary loss. A strike made at the right moment, even with modest resources, creates effortless triumph. In modern life, this wisdom becomes a guiding principle. Don't act just because you feel ready. Act because the environment, the timing, the preparation, and the probability all align in your favor. People often confuse action with progress. They rush into commitments, confrontations, opportunities, and risks without truly assessing the landscape. They move because waiting feels uncomfortable, because ego demands results now, because emotions push them toward urgency. But Sun Tzu understood that premature action transforms potential victory into avoidable defeat. When you move before you're prepared, you leak energy. When you strike without advantage, you expose weaknesses. When you chase timing instead of creating timing, you surrender control to randomness and luck. Waiting for the right moment isn't passivity, it's precision. It's allowing conditions to shift in your favor. It's stacking the odds quietly, strategically, and intentionally. Sun Tzu carefully studied terrain, morale, weather, and the enemy state before committing to action. In your life, this means evaluating emotional readiness, financial stability, skill level, support systems, timing, and your opponent, whether that opponent is a challenge, a fear, or a goal. When the pieces aren't aligned, patience becomes your weapon. When they are aligned, action becomes unstoppable. There is also power in the restraint it takes to wait. Sun Tzu valued the leader who could stand still when the desire to move was strong. That stillness is a form of strength. It protects you from impulsive decisions rooted in insecurity or frustration. It allows you to observe patterns, gather information, and refine your approach. While others rush and stumble, you prepare quietly, turning yourself into someone who does not need many attempts, only the right one. And when the moment finally arrives, you strike with full force. Sun Tzu knew that overwhelming timing crushes resistance. In modern terms, this is the job interview you enter fully prepared, the conversation you initiate when emotions are calm, the opportunity you seize after building skill and confidence, the risk you take when you've minimized unnecessary danger. Your action lands with impact because it is rooted in calculation, not hope. Striking only when success is highly probable doesn't mean avoiding all risk. It means avoiding unnecessary risk. It means acting from advantage, not desperation. It means letting your strategy choose the moment, not your emotions. Sun Tzu's wisdom reveals the truth. Victory is not given to the one who acts the most, but to the one who acts at the right time. When you wait for the moment when probability leans heavily in your favor, your strikes become fewer, sharper, and infinitely more powerful. Avoid environments that continuously weaken you. Sun Tzu taught that even the strongest army becomes vulnerable when forced to fight on unfavorable terrain. A commander who keeps his troops in harsh, draining, or strategically useless environments slowly destroys them without ever meeting the enemy. In modern life, the terrain you live, work, and interact in has the same effect. Some environments sharpen you, bringing clarity, growth, and strength. Others quietly weaken you, eroding your confidence, draining your energy, and pulling you into cycles that dull your potential. Sun Tzu's wisdom makes the truth undeniable. No matter how capable you are, the wrong environment will dismantle you piece by piece. Weakening environments come in many forms. They can be relationships built on manipulation or inconsistency, jobs that crush your spirit instead of challenging your skills, social circles that normalize mediocrity, or even mental spaces shaped by self-doubt, regret, and comparison. These environments might not wound you all at once. They wear you down slowly. You start tolerating what once bothered you, accepting what once hurt you, and shrinking to fit what once limited you. Sun Tzu knew that this slow erosion is often more dangerous than open conflict because you don't realize you're losing strength until you're already weakened. Avoiding these environments requires brutal honesty. Sun Tzu insisted that leaders must see reality clearly, not as they wish it to be. You must ask yourself whether your surroundings empower you or drain you, whether they bring out your discipline or feed your distractions, whether they uplift your spirit or bury it. When you avoid these truths, you remain stuck in places that undermine your growth. When you face them, you reclaim the authority to choose terrain that supports your strength rather than steals it. Leaving weakening environments is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of strategy. Sun Tzu often withdrew from ground that offered no advantage, conserving strength to fight on terrain where victory was possible. In your life, walking away doesn't mean giving up. It means refusing to wage war in places designed to make you lose. It means valuing your mind, your energy, and your peace enough to protect them. It means understanding that you cannot grow roots in soil that poisons you. There is also a psychological transformation that occurs when you step out of weakening environments. Your clarity returns, your motivation awakens. You begin to see possibilities that were invisible when you were surrounded by negativity, pressure, or stagnation. Sun Tzu believed that environment shapes strategy and strategy shapes outcome. When you place yourself in a space that nurtures your strengths, your potential expands. When you surround yourself with people and situations that elevate you, your life begins moving in directions you once thought impossible. Ultimately, avoiding weakening environments is not just an act of self-preservation, it is an act of power. It is the decision to place yourself on terrain where you can thrive instead of merely endure. Sun Tzu's wisdom reveals the deeper truth. Strength is not just what you carry within you, it is also the soil you choose to stand on. Leverage momentum once it's built. Sun Tzu taught that a force in motion becomes more powerful with each step it maintains. Momentum, he believed, turns a modest army into an unstoppable one, not because its strength magically increases, but because motion itself creates advantage. Once soldiers begin advancing with confidence, the enemy's morale breaks, fear spreads, and opportunities multiply. In modern life, momentum functions the same way. Once you begin moving in the right direction, every effort becomes easier, every success compounds, and every step forward carries more force than the last. Sun Tzu's wisdom reveals a truth many overlook. Momentum is fragile at first, but once built, it is one of the most powerful tools you possess. Most people struggle not because they lack ability, but because they stop too soon. They start a project, take a few steps, and the moment they face discomfort, doubt, or resistance, they pause. Sun Tzu understood the danger of pauses. He knew that when movement stops, fear fills the space, morale drops, and the enemy regains strength. In life, stopping too early allows excuses to multiply, old habits to resurface, and motivation to decay. But when you push through the early friction, when you keep going even when progress feels slow, you ignite momentum. And once it's burning, everything changes. Tasks feel lighter, ideas flow, confidence grows. What once demanded enormous effort begins to feel natural. Momentum is emotional as much as it is strategic. Sun Tzu observed that troops fought harder when they sensed victory approaching because progress creates belief. In today's world, small wins fuel bigger ones. Completing one hard task gives you the strength to tackle the next. A week of discipline makes a month possible. A single courageous decision starts a chain reaction of growth. Momentum is the psychological engine that shifts you from forcing movement to being carried by it. Once you're aligned, forward motion becomes instinct instead of effort. But Sun Tzu also warned that momentum must be protected. Just as it builds with consistency, it can crumble with neglect. One day of hesitation can turn into many. One moment of doubt can break the flow you worked so hard to create. To leverage momentum, you must treat it like a flame. Feed it, protect it, and refuse to let the wind of distraction or fear extinguish it. This means eliminating unnecessary pauses, avoiding environments that drain your drive, and staying focused on the direction you've committed to. When life tries to pull you backward, momentum is the force that keeps you rooted in progress instead of regression. Momentum also gives you a strategic edge against obstacles. When you're already moving, resistance loses its power. Sun Tzu believed that a strong advance disorients the enemy, forcing them to react instead of act. In modern life, momentum does the same. Problems shrink, delays shorten, and opportunities appear simply because you're already in motion. People with momentum are harder to discourage, harder to distract, and harder to stop. They move with a confidence that amplifies itself. Sun Tzu's insight is simple but transformative. Once momentum is created, it must be used. When you feel the shift, when progress becomes smoother, when your vision sharpens, when effort feels lighter, that is the moment to accelerate, not relax. Momentum rewards those who honor it, and it turns ordinary effort into extraordinary results. Exploit complacency in opponents. Never become complacent yourself. Nothing weakens a force more quickly than comfort disguised as confidence. Sun Tzu warned that an enemy who believes the battle is already won becomes blind, slow, and predictable. Complacency is the quiet decay of awareness. It softens discipline, dulls instinct, and convinces even strong warriors that danger no longer exists. In war, this creates openings, moments when the opponent relaxes, routines slip, and defenses loosen. Sun Tzu believed these moments were golden opportunities. While the complacent enemy sleeps, the strategic leader strikes. And in modern life, this principle is just as potent. Opportunities often appear not because you are overwhelmingly strong, but because others have become comfortable, careless, or distracted. Complacency is everywhere. People who stop improving because they think they're already good enough. Workers who stop paying attention because their job feels secure. Partners who stop trying because they assume loyalty is guaranteed. Competitors who stop innovating because they believe they're unmatched. Sun Tzu understood that this mindset is the beginning of decline. When others fall into that trap, their guard lowers, their ambition fades, their awareness shrinks. If you remain alert while they drift into comfort, you gain an advantage that effort alone cannot create. You move while they stand still. You think while they assume. You evolve while they coast. Yet the deeper wisdom lies not in others' complacency, but in avoiding your own. Sun Tzu believed that the deadliest enemy is the one within, the part of you that stops striving because progress has been made, the part that relaxes discipline after a small success, the part that chooses comfort over growth. Complacency is seductive. It tells you that you've done enough, learned enough, improved enough, but Sun Tzu understood that the moment you stop sharpening your blade is the moment you begin to lose the battles you haven't even fought yet. The world doesn't pause simply because you do. Opportunities move on, rivals emerge, circumstances shift. A complacent mind is always one step behind. Staying vigilant does not mean staying fearful. It means staying awake. It means keeping your hunger sharp, your skills active, your awareness alive. Sun Tzu maintained that constant preparation, not constant action, preserves power. In everyday life, this means refining your skills even when things are going well, checking your assumptions even when you feel confident, and staying curious even when you feel certain. Complacency blinds, awareness illuminates. When you avoid complacency, you see openings others miss, shifts in behavior, changes in trends, cracks in systems, weaknesses hidden beneath overconfidence. There is also a psychological advantage in remaining disciplined while others grow lax. Whether in business, relationships, or personal growth, people who underestimate you give you room to maneuver. They expose truths carelessly. They relax boundaries. They reveal patterns. Sun Tzu exploited these openings with precision, striking at the exact moment the opponent assumed he wouldn't. In your own life, this might mean advancing at work while colleagues coast, strengthening yourself emotionally while others neglect growth, or pursuing opportunities while others wait for the right time. The lesson is clear and enduring. Exploit the complacency you see in others, but guard yourself fiercely from falling into it. Sun Tzu's wisdom reminds you that advantage belongs to the vigilant, not the loudest, not the strongest, but the ones who stay awake long after others have begun to drift into comfort. Consistency and discipline defeat randomness. Success is not the product of inspiration, luck, or fleeting bursts of motivation. It is the result of repeated, intentional action, day after day, choice after choice, long after excitement fades. Sun Tzu understood this deeply. Armies did not win because they fought harder in a single moment. They won because they trained relentlessly, prepared thoroughly, and moved with coordinated discipline. Random effort could never match the power of a force that acted with structure and consistency. In modern life, this principle separates those who achieve lasting progress from those who only taste momentary success. Randomness feels exciting. It gives the illusion of freedom, doing things when you feel like it, pushing hard only when inspiration hits, letting emotions dictate effort. But Sun Tzu would call this a dangerous way to live. Randomness cannot be relied upon. It produces unpredictable results, unstable progress, and fragile confidence. You cannot master anything if you only show up when the mood is right. You cannot build a strong mind if you only practice resilience on good days. You cannot grow if you depend on chance rather than structure. True power comes from discipline, the quiet, steady force that does the work no matter how you feel. Consistency is its own form of strategy. Sun Tzu knew that repetition sharpens instinct, strengthens confidence, and creates an advantage that cannot be taken away. In life, this means showing up even when the progress feels slow, practicing your craft when no one is watching, choosing good habits over intoxicating distractions, and committing to the long game. Every small action compounds. Every disciplined choice builds momentum. Over time, you become someone who cannot be easily shaken because your success is rooted in systems, not spikes of effort. Discipline also protects you from the chaos of your own emotions. Sun Tzu valued generals who remain steady, regardless of circumstance. Life demands the same steadiness. When you are disciplined, you don't collapse because you had a bad day. You don't fall apart because motivation disappeared. You don't stop pursuing your goals because discomfort arrived. Discipline becomes the anchor that holds you steady, while randomness tries to pull you off course. It transforms you from someone who reacts to life into someone who directs it. Consistency creates trust in yourself. Every time you follow through, you strengthen your belief in your own capability. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you reinforce your identity as someone who finishes what they start. This is the psychological advantage Sun Tzu treasured. A warrior who trusts himself becomes unstoppable because doubt cannot take root in a disciplined mind. Randomness may give you moments of excitement, but consistency gives you a lifetime of progress. Discipline turns vision into reality, potential into skill, and dreams into outcomes. And as Sun Tzu's wisdom reveals, the side that shows up with stability, not chaos, always wins. Over time, the world bends to those who are relentless, steady, and grounded in daily action. Consistency and discipline are the quiet forces that defeat randomness every single time. Know your environment and situation thoroughly. In The Art of War, Sun Tzu warns that stepping into any battle without understanding the terrain, the weather, the enemy, and the political climate is the fastest path to defeat. Modern life is no different. Every situation you enter, whether it's a relationship, an argument, a job interview, or a major decision, has its own landscape, its own hidden rules, its own forces shaping the outcome. When you fail to study this environment, you walk into life's battles blind, hoping luck will save you. But when you learn to observe the world around you with the same disciplined awareness Sun Tzu demanded from his generals, you gain an advantage so powerful it feels almost unfair. Sun Tzu taught that the one who knows the ground beneath his feet controls the flow of the fight. In today's world, this means paying attention to the details others overlook. It means noticing the energy in a room, the intentions behind someone's words, the shifting dynamics of a workplace, the subtle emotional atmosphere in conversations. Most people react impulsively, acting before they understand the full picture, letting assumptions lead them into unnecessary conflict. But when you take the time to understand your surroundings, you stop reacting blindly. You begin to see motives hidden behind gestures, patterns behind behavior, and opportunities disguised as chaos. Sun Tzu believed that the wise leader wins battles before they begin. Modern awareness works the same way. When you thoroughly understand the situation, you can predict outcomes long before they unfold. You sense when someone is being deceptive, when a relationship is drifting, when a job is becoming unstable, when a friend is hurting without saying it. You recognize when pressure is building beneath the surface and when silence means more than words. This level of perception isn't just intelligence, it is emotional, psychological, and strategic awareness woven together, the same way Sun Tzu studied every aspect of a battlefield. The greatest danger arises when you rely on assumptions rather than reality. Sun Tzu wrote that ignorance turns even strong armies into weak ones. In life, ignorance does the same to people. Misreading a situation leads to heartbreak, financial mistakes, betrayal, or lost opportunities. But when you see things exactly as they are, without denial, without fantasy, you protect yourself from walking into traps. You stop giving your trust to the wrong people. You stop entering battles you can't win. You stop pouring your energy into environments that do not support your growth. Understanding your environment gives you the power to time your actions the way Sun Tzu timed his attacks, with precision rather than desperation. You know when to advance, when to wait, and when to walk away entirely. You begin to move through life with a sense of calm strategy instead of chaotic emotion. And slowly, you realize that awareness is its own form of power, one that turns everyday life into a terrain you know how to navigate with confidence and control. Know yourself before you confront challenges. Sun Tzu begins The Art of War with a warning that echoes across centuries. The one who knows himself cannot be defeated easily. In war, this meant a general had to understand his own strengths, weaknesses, emotions, and limitations before ever stepping onto the battlefield. In modern life, the battles are internal rather than fought with weapons, but the principle remains just as powerful. When you don't know who you are, every challenge feels bigger, every setback feels personal, and every obstacle feels like proof that you're not enough. But when you understand your inner world, your fears, your patterns, your desires, you step into challenges with a clarity that makes you unshakable. Most people try to conquer life without first conquering themselves. They chase goals because others expect them to, fight for attention they don't actually want, and enter situations they are emotionally unprepared for. Sun Tzu believed that self-ignorance was the beginning of defeat, because a person who doesn't understand themselves is constantly misled by their own emotions. You react too quickly, care too deeply about the wrong things, or underestimate the wounds you have never taken the time to heal. But when you turn inward with honesty, you begin to understand why you move the way you do, why certain things trigger you, and why certain paths drain you while others ignite you. This inner clarity becomes the strategy that guides everything else. There is a quiet power in facing yourself without running. Sun Tzu demanded that a general know the true condition of his army. Likewise, you must know the true condition of your mind and heart. Are you motivated by purpose or insecurity? Are you pursuing a dream or running from a fear? Are you confronting a challenge because it matters or because you feel pressure to prove something? When you know the truth, you stop wasting energy on battles that aren't meant for you. You stop mistaking your anxiety for intuition. You stop walking into situations that drain your strength instead of sharpening it. Self-knowledge also transforms the way you handle adversity. Sun Tzu taught that battles are won by preparation long before they are fought. When you understand your emotional patterns, challenges no longer surprise you, they reveal you. You begin to see when your ego is speaking, when your fear is exaggerating danger, and when your insecurities are disguising themselves as logic. Instead of collapsing under pressure, you adjust. Instead of breaking, you bend. Vulnerability becomes a source of insight rather than shame, because you know exactly where your inner fractures lie. Knowing yourself gives you an advantage that cannot be faked. You become harder to manipulate, harder to discourage, and harder to derail. You start choosing battles that align with your strengths rather than your doubts. You begin moving through the world the way Sun Tzu moved through war, with quiet confidence, deliberate steps, and a deep understanding that the greatest victories begin within. Preparation determines success long before action begins. Sun Tzu insists that victory is secured long before the first strike is ever made. Battles, he teaches, are not won on the field. They are won in the quiet, unseen hours of preparation. This idea is just as true in modern life as it was in ancient warfare. People often assume success comes from talent, confidence, or luck. But Sun Tzu exposes a deeper truth. The moment you begin preparing, the outcome already starts taking shape. When you take the time to plan, study, train, and understand what lies ahead, you build an invisible foundation that supports every step you take. Without preparation, even the strongest intentions collapse under pressure. With it, even the impossible becomes achievable. Modern life is full of people who leap before they look, who start before they're ready, who act out of impulse rather than strategy. Sun Tzu saw this behavior thousands of years ago and warned against it, explaining that chaos comes from rushing into action without mastering the variables that shape it. When you prepare, you reduce fear because your mind knows you have already faced the challenge in your imagination. You weaken doubt because you've studied the terrain, anticipated problems, and rehearsed your responses. Preparation transforms uncertainty into familiarity, and familiarity into confidence. It doesn't eliminate risk, but it ensures that risk doesn't control you. There is a quiet magic in the work done when no one is watching. It is in the late nights spent practicing, the early mornings spent planning, the honest conversations you have with yourself about what needs improvement. Sun Tzu understood that this invisible effort is what separates success from regret. You may not see results immediately, but preparation is a seed planted deep beneath the soil of your future. When the moment of action arrives, you draw from that seed, your discipline, your knowledge, your resilience, and the world sees a result that looks effortless, though it was anything but. Preparation also reveals who you truly are. Sun Tzu believed that through preparation, a general learns the truth of his own strength. The same happens in life. When you prepare, you face your weaknesses honestly. You confront the skills you lack, the emotions you need to manage, the assumptions you must abandon. It is in preparation that you meet the version of yourself capable of handling what the future demands. Most people fear preparation because it forces them to see the gap between who they are and who they want to be. But those who embrace it emerge stronger, sharper, and far more capable of shaping their destiny. When the moment finally comes to act, whether it's a conversation you feared, a goal you've chased, or a challenge rising in front of you, you will feel something powerful. The calm that Sun Tzu described, it is the calm of someone who has already fought the battle in their mind and prepared their spirit for what comes next. And in that calmness lives the quiet truth. The real victory began long before today. Avoid conflicts when they bring no benefit. Yes, Sun Tzu noted that the greatest victories are the ones won without fighting. He warns that every conflict, no matter how small, demands energy, resources, time, and emotional strength. In ancient warfare, engaging in a battle that offered no strategic value was considered foolishness. In modern life, we often fall into this trap without realizing it. We argue to prove a point, confront people who cannot be changed, defend our pride against meaningless attacks, and involve ourselves in dramas that drain us. But Sun Tzu's wisdom cuts through all this noise. If a conflict brings no benefit, if it does not move you forward, protect what matters, or align with your values, then fighting is nothing more than self-inflicted loss. Modern conflict rarely involves weapons. It shows up in conversations, relationships, social media, workplace politics, and inner struggles. Sun Tzu understood human nature deeply, and he knew that ego is often the real enemy. Many battles are fought not because they matter, but because someone feels threatened, embarrassed, or hungry for validation. But when you step back and observe the situation with strategic clarity, you begin to see how many conflicts are simply bait, traps designed to pull you into emotional chaos. Avoiding them is not weakness. It is discipline. It is strength. It is the mark of someone who knows the value of their energy and refuses to waste it on battles that yield nothing. Sun Tzu believed that a wise leader evaluates not just the fight itself, but the cost of fighting. In life, that cost is emotional fatigue, broken relationships, wasted time, lost opportunities, and mental exhaustion that lingers long after the conflict ends. When you choose which battles are worth fighting, you reclaim control over your life. You stop letting other people's insecurities dictate your actions. You refuse to be dragged into arguments with no resolution, conversations that only spiral downward, and situations that feed chaos rather than clarity. Instead of reacting impulsively, you respond with intention. There is a quiet dignity in walking away. It is the dignity of someone who sees the bigger picture, who understands that their peace is more valuable than being right, and who knows that silence can be stronger than any verbal attack. Sun Tzu would call this winning without battle, and in modern life, it becomes a form of emotional intelligence. When you refuse unnecessary conflict, you protect your mental state, your relationships, and your future from damage that never needed to happen. You choose peace not because you fear confrontation, but because you understand that your energy is sacred. Avoiding meaningless conflict creates space for the battles that do matter: your goals, your growth, your healing, your success. It frees your mind to focus on what truly moves you forward. Sun Tzu's timeless lesson becomes a guiding truth. Not every insult deserves a response, not every challenge deserves your attention, and not every battle deserves to be fought. Win without fighting whenever possible. The most famous and profound lesson from the art of war is that the supreme victory is the one achieved without conflict. To him, the greatest generals were not the ones who fought the fiercest battles, but the ones who made battles unnecessary. In modern life, this principle becomes a powerful reminder that strength is not proven through confrontation, aggression, or domination. True power is shown in the ability to influence outcomes quietly, to neutralize threats before they escalate, and to create environments where conflict simply cannot grow. Winning without fighting is the art of using intelligence, emotional control, and strategic insight to shape reality before it explodes into chaos. Sun Tzu understood that every fight, no matter how small, drains energy, resources, and mental focus. He knew that wars destroy more than they build, and the same is true today. Fighting with people, arguing to prove yourself, struggling for validation, and defending your pride offer nothing but temporary satisfaction and long-term emptiness. When you choose not to fight, not because you're afraid, but because you see the bigger picture, you rise above the emotional traps that so many fall into. You begin to understand that winning is not about defeating others. It's about protecting your peace, your strategy, and your future. Winning without fighting requires emotional maturity. Sun Tzu believed that the strongest leaders are those who control themselves first. When you are calm, you can read situations clearly. You begin to sense when a confrontation is brewing, and instead of feeding it, you disarm it with awareness. You adjust your tone, your timing, your words. You observe what the other person truly needs: validation, security, understanding, and you respond in a way that dissolves the tension rather than inflames it. This kind of emotional intelligence becomes a quiet weapon, one that disarms hostility before it has a chance to strike. there is also a strategic side to this lesson. Sun Tzu often used deception, positioning, and alliances to prevent wars before they began. In modern life, this translates into planning ahead, understanding motives, and influencing outcomes subtly. You can avoid conflict by preparing better than others, by reading social dynamics early, by choosing environments and relationships that support your growth rather than sabotage it. You win when you avoid the situations that would force you into battle. You win when you set boundaries that make confrontation unnecessary. You win when you develop yourself to such a degree that problems lose their power over you. And there is something deeply empowering about this form of winning. It is the victory of the mind over impulse, wisdom over ego, clarity over chaos. You walk away from situations feeling lighter instead of wounded, stronger instead of drained. You begin to realize that you don't need to overpower others to rise. You need only to outthink, outgrow, and outmaneuver the forces that try to pull you into conflict. Sun Tzu's lesson becomes a modern truth. The strongest person is not the one who fights the most battles, but the one who makes battles unnecessary. Strategy outweighs brute force. Wars are not won by strength alone, they are won by strategy. Armies that rely purely on power burn out quickly, but armies guided by intelligence, patience, and foresight endure. In modern life, brute force takes many forms. Pushing yourself relentlessly, arguing louder instead of smarter, reacting impulsively, or trying to dominate situations through sheer intensity. But Sun Tzu's wisdom exposes a deeper truth. Raw effort without strategy is wasted energy. When your actions lack direction, you exhaust yourself chasing outcomes that could have been achieved with a fraction of the effort if only you had slowed down long enough to plan. Modern society glorifies hustle, grind, and non-stop activity, but Sun Tzu would call this a dangerous illusion. He teaches that true power comes from understanding the situation, positioning yourself wisely, and striking only when the moment is right. Strategy means seeing the entire battlefield of your life, your goals, your relationships, your opportunities, your weaknesses, and making decisions based on clarity rather than pressure. It means thinking 3 steps ahead instead of responding to whatever happens in front of you. Brute force reacts. Strategy anticipates. Brute force fights every battle. Strategy chooses the battles that matter. There is something deeply empowering about knowing you don't need to overpower life. You need to outthink it. Sun Tzu knew that a smaller, smarter force could defeat a larger, stronger one simply by using timing, terrain, deception, and psychology. In life, this translates to emotional intelligence, situational awareness, patience, and the ability to read people's motives beneath their words. Strategy means understanding your strengths deeply, but also seeing your vulnerabilities with honesty so you can protect them. It means knowing when to speak and when silence will serve you better, when to act and when stillness is your greatest weapon. Most people fail not because they aren't strong, but because they expend their strength in the wrong direction. They push when they should pivot. They confront when they should observe. They resist when they should adapt. Sun Tzu taught that flexibility is a form of power, that the one who can shift and adjust will outlast the one who stubbornly charges forward. Strategy turns obstacles into openings and opponents into teachers. It allows you to conserve energy for the moments that matter most. And there is something undeniably emotional about realizing how often we've tried to force life into submission rather than understanding its rhythm. Strategy gives you back your power, not the loud, aggressive kind, but the calm, controlled kind that comes from seeing what others miss. It sharpens your mind, steadies your heart, and transforms your struggles into choices rather than accidents. Sun Tzu's lesson becomes a beacon. Strength without strategy is noise, but strategy without wasted strength becomes unstoppable. Adapt quickly to changing circumstances. Sun Tzu teaches in The Art of War that water shapes itself to the terrain it flows through, and the wise warrior shapes himself to the realities he faces. He warns that rigid minds shatter under pressure, while adaptable ones survive and conquer. Modern life mirrors this battlefield. The world shifts faster than ever. Relationships evolve, careers transform, opportunities open and close without warning, and personal circumstances can change overnight. Those who cling to what used to work are left behind, while those who adjust with speed and clarity move forward with a power that feels almost unstoppable. Adaptation is not merely a skill, it is a survival instinct sharpened into strategy. Sun Tzu understood that no plan survives contact with reality. Life rarely unfolds the way we expect, and the people who suffer the most are often the ones who refuse to accept change. They hold on to outdated beliefs, old routines, familiar but unfulfilling situations, or identities that no longer reflect who they are. But the world does not pause to wait for them. Change comes, whether you are ready or not. When you resist it, you break. When you adapt, you evolve. Sun Tzu's wisdom invites you to respond to life not with panic, but with flexibility, adjusting your pace, your mindset, and your actions as the terrain shifts beneath your feet. There is an emotional intelligence required to adapt quickly. It demands honesty with yourself, honesty about what is no longer working, about what needs to be released, about what new reality you must accept. Many people stay stuck because adapting feels like admitting defeat. But Sun Tzu reframes adaptation as strength, not surrender. A commander who shifts strategy when the battlefield changes is not weak. He is wise. In life, the same truth applies. When you let go of what no longer serves you, you create space for what will. When you adjust your expectations, you protect your peace. When you pivot instead of resisting, you open doors that rigidity would have kept locked. Adaptation also awakens a kind of inner power, an ability to remain calm inside uncertainty. Sun Tzu teaches that the unpredictable is not something to fear, but something to prepare for. When you train your mind to adjust instead of cling, sudden changes stop feeling like threats and begin to feel like opportunities disguised as disruption. You respond faster, think clear, and stay grounded even when your world trembles. People around you may crumble under stress, but you move with the quiet confidence of someone who has learned to flow rather than break. In adapting quickly, you step into alignment with life's natural rhythm. Everything changes: people, circumstances, desires, seasons of growth and decline. The ones who thrive are the ones who move with this rhythm instead of resisting it. Sun Tzu's lesson becomes deeply personal. The more you learn to adapt, the harder it becomes for life to overwhelm you. You transform chaos into clarity and uncertainty into momentum, simply by refusing to remain the same when the world demands evolution. Timing is often more important than effort. Sun Tzu reveals that even the strongest army can fail if it strikes at the wrong moment. He understood that effort, no matter how intense, becomes meaningless when applied at the wrong time. In warfare, timing determined everything: the moment to advance, the moment to retreat, the moment to ambush, the moment to wait. Modern life mirrors this truth with painful precision. You can work harder than anyone, sacrifice more than most, and still fail simply because the timing wasn't right. And when the timing is right, even small actions can create massive breakthroughs. Timing is the invisible force that shapes success, silently deciding outcomes long before we realize it. People today often pride themselves on effort alone. We celebrate hustle, obsession, sleepless nights, and relentless pushing forward. But Sun Tzu warns that relentless effort without awareness becomes self-destruction. He teaches that acting too early
leads to unnecessary loss, and acting too late leads to missed opportunities. Life follows this same rhythm. Relationships flourish or fall apart based on timing, careers open or collapse based on timing, opportunities appear only when conditions align. When you learn to feel the rhythm of your life, the way Sun Tzu read the rhythm of the battlefield, you stop forcing outcomes that aren't ready and start moving in harmony with moments that naturally support your success. Timing is not about luck. It's about sensitivity. It's about understanding when the world is opening a door and when it is quietly telling you to wait. Sun Tzu trained his generals to study everything: the mood of the troops, the movement of the enemy, the condition of the terrain, the pressure in the air, because each detail revealed whether the moment was ripe or dangerous. In modern life, mastering timing means paying attention to the emotional atmosphere in a conversation, the direction of energy in a relationship, the momentum of a project, the readiness of your own mind. When you learn to read these signals, you stop sprinting into dead ends and start walking into the exact spaces where success is possible. There is a kind of emotional intelligence woven into timing. Sometimes you're not failing because your effort is lacking. You're failing because the moment is not aligned with your growth. Sometimes the world is not rejecting you. It's protecting you from a situation you're not ready for yet. Sun Tzu understood that patience is not passivity, it is preparation in disguise. Waiting becomes a strategic move, a deliberate choice to strike, when the conditions promise victory instead of defeat. When the right moment finally arrives, you feel it. Conversations suddenly flow. Opportunities appear without force. Ideas click. People who once ignored you now pay attention. Momentum that once resisted you begins pulling you forward. This is the sweet alignment that Sun Tzu spoke of, the moment when timing amplifies effort, turning small actions into transformative results. When you learn to respect timing, you move through life like a strategist rather than a struggler, knowing that success is not just about how hard you push, but when you choose to move. Choose battles that matter, not every battle you could fight. Sun Tzu makes it unmistakably clear that a general who engages in every battle is a general destined for exhaustion, chaos, and eventual defeat. Victory is not earned by fighting more, it is earned by fighting wisely. In modern life, this principle becomes a painful truth most people learn too late. You can waste your entire life fighting meaningless battles. You can argue over opinions that don't matter, defend yourself against people who don't care, chase validation that offers no fulfillment, and pour energy into conflicts that lead nowhere. Sun Tzu's wisdom slices through all of this. Only a fool fights every fight. The wise choose battles that change something, protect something, or elevate their life in a meaningful way. Most modern battles are emotional rather than physical. You fight to be understood, to be right, to be respected, to be seen. You fight to maintain pride or to avoid feeling weak. But Sun Tzu would call these battles illusions, drains on your time, your peace, and your purpose. When you understand that not every confrontation deserves your attention, you begin to reclaim the energy you've been giving away to people and situations unworthy of it. You stop letting every comment, criticism, or challenge pull you into a war that leads to nowhere but emotional exhaustion. Your peace becomes the territory you protect, and your boundaries become the walls that guard it. Sun Tzu believed that every battle must be measured by its purpose. Before engaging, a commander asks, "What is the reward? Is it worth the risk? What will this cost me physically, emotionally, and strategically?" In your own life, asking these questions changes everything. Some battles protect your integrity. Some battles secure your future. Some battles help you grow into someone stronger, but others simply feed your ego or drain your spirit. When you learn to tell the difference, you stop fighting to win every argument and start fighting only for the things that matter: your peace, your values, your goals, your self-respect. There is a quiet strength in refusing a battle, not out of fear,
but out of strategic clarity. Sun Tzu admired restraint just as much as bravery, because restraint is intelligence in motion. When you choose not to fight, you maintain control. You conserve your emotional resources. You deny others the power to drag you into their chaos. You rise above the noise that consumes so many people's lives. And what emerges is a version of you capable of focusing on what truly shapes your destiny, not what distracts from it. Choosing your battles is one of the most mature forms of self-mastery. It turns your energy into a weapon of precision rather than waste. It allows you to place your strength where it will create real change, and slowly you begin to see life the way Sun Tzu saw war, not as a series of constant fights, but as a strategic path where only the meaningful battles are worth your fire. Use deception strategically, not maliciously. The Art of War revealed an uncomfortable truth about human nature and conflict. Appearances rarely reflect reality. He famously declared that all warfare is based on deception, not the destructive, malicious kind, but the strategic use of misdirection to protect yourself, outmaneuver threats, and gain the upper hand without unnecessary damage. In modern life, deception often sounds morally questionable, yet Sun Tzu's wisdom draws a clear line between manipulation that harms and strategy that shields. The world is full of people who exploit honesty, misread kindness as weakness, and use transparency as a map to your vulnerabilities. Sun Tzu understood this long before our age of oversharing. Sometimes the most powerful form of self-protection is simply not revealing everything you know, feel, or plan. Strategic deception is less about lying and more about controlling what you allow others to see. It is the art of withholding your full intentions until the right moment, of keeping your strengths hidden until they're needed, of masking your weaknesses so others cannot exploit them. Sun Tzu taught that a general should appear weak when he is strong and strong when he is weak, not to harm others but to prevent being harmed. In modern life, this means maintaining mystery around your goals, staying composed when emotions flare, and refusing to give people ammunition they could use against you. It is choosing discernment over emotional exposure, timing over impulsiveness. The emotional weight of this teaching becomes clear the first time you realize someone has taken advantage of your transparency. We learn painfully that not everyone deserves full access to our thoughts or vulnerabilities. Sun Tzu offers a way out of this cycle of disappointment. Hold back what does not need to be shown. Strategic deception allows you to observe others honestly while revealing yourself selectively. It allows you to test intentions, to read people's true nature without announcing your own, to protect your boundaries while still moving through the world with purpose. There is also a deeper psychological layer. People often act based on assumptions, and sometimes allowing those assumptions to stand works in your favor. Sun Tzu understood that perception shapes outcomes more than reality does. When you let others underestimate you, you gain leverage. When you avoid revealing urgency, you maintain control. When you keep your emotions steady, you disorient those who expect you to break. Deception becomes a quiet form of power, one rooted not in cruelty, but in strategy. The danger arises only when deception becomes malicious, when it seeks to harm, exploit, or destroy. Sun Tzu condemns this kind of deception because it creates enemies rather than eliminating conflict. The goal is to avoid unnecessary battles, not provoke new ones. Strategic deception is about survival, protection, and advantage. Malicious deception is about domination and ego. Knowing the difference is what separates wisdom from manipulation. Used correctly, Sun Tzu's teaching becomes a life skill that sharpens your mind and steadies your heart. It teaches you to navigate a world full of hidden motives without losing yourself in the process, proving that not all truth needs to be spoken and not all strength needs to be seen. Create opportunities instead of waiting for them. Sun Tzu reveals in The Art of War that victory belongs not to those who wait for favorable conditions, but to those who create them. He teaches that a skilled general does not sit idle, hoping the battlefield will shift in his favor. Instead, he shapes the terrain, manipulates circumstances, and forces openings where none existed before. Modern life is no different. Opportunities rarely fall into your lap. They are carved out through intention, courage, and the refusal to remain passive in a world that rewards movement. When you stop waiting and start creating, life begins to bend toward your will rather than leaving you at the mercy of chance. Many people live in a constant state of hoping things will change, hoping someone will notice them, hoping the right moment will simply arrive. But Sun Tzu teaches that waiting is a form of surrender. The more you wait, the smaller your world becomes. Opportunities dry up, confidence weakens, and life begins to feel like something happening to you rather than something you actively shape. Creating opportunities requires you to step into the role of strategist, not spectator. It demands that you stop asking for permission and start acting as if the door you need already exists, even if you must build it yourself. There is a deeper emotional layer to this lesson. Sun Tzu understood that fear is the greatest obstacle to action. People wait not because they lack ideas, but because they fear judgment, failure, or rejection. But opportunities are born from motion, not perfection. Every step you take, no matter how uncertain, creates new possibilities, new connections, new directions. The world responds to movement with momentum. The moment you begin, the moment you refuse to remain still, the universe opens pathways that were invisible when you stood frozen. Creating opportunities also requires the ability to see beyond what is immediately visible. Sun Tzu taught that a wise general studies the battlefield until he notices weaknesses others overlook. In life, this means seeing possibilities where others see dead ends, potential where others see limits, and openings in situations that seem closed. A conversation becomes a connection, a setback becomes a redirection, a small idea becomes a future success. The person who trains their mind to think this way rarely feels stuck because they can always find or forge a path forward. Most people underestimate how much control they truly have. Waiting feels safer than risking, but Sun Tzu shows that safety is an illusion. The longer you wait, the more time slips through your fingers. But when you create opportunities, you step into your power. You shape your environment the way a commander shapes a battlefield, deliberately, boldly, and with purpose. You stop living passively and begin living strategically. And slowly, you realize that the life you once hoped for is no longer something distant. It is something you are actively building with every decisive step you take. Turn disadvantages into advantages. Sun Tzu teaches that what appears to be a weakness can become a weapon, and what looks like a disadvantage can transform into strategic strength. He understood that the battlefield is unpredictable, and those who survive are not the ones with perfect circumstances, but the ones who can take what seems unfavorable and reshape it into power. In modern life, this lesson stings with truth. We all carry wounds, insecurities, limitations, and setbacks that feel like burdens. But Sun Tzu's wisdom reframes them. Your disadvantage is not a dead end. It is raw material you can forge into something greater. The weakness you hate may hold the exact insight, resilience, or motivation that propels you forward. Sun Tzu often placed his troops in difficult terrain on purpose, believing hardship sharpens awareness and forces creativity. Modern life does the same. Your struggles force you to think differently, adapt faster, and learn skills you never would have otherwise. When you face rejection, you gain clarity about what genuinely aligns with your path. When you lack resources, you learn ingenuity. When people underestimate you, you acquire the element of surprise. Disadvantages strip away illusions and force you into the most powerful mindset a human can hold, resourcefulness. It is the same mindset Sun Tzu used to turn impossible situations into victories that seemed miraculous from the outside. Every disadvantage carries an emotional weight, and this is where transformation truly begins. Pain has a way of revealing who you are beneath the surface. Sun Tzu believed that a warrior becomes dangerous only after he has faced himself in moments of weakness, not strength. When life breaks you open, it exposes the parts of you that need sharpening. It forces you to confront the fears you hide, the doubts you carry, the insecurities you pretend not to feel. But it also awakens something fierce, a will to overcome, a clarity about your priorities, a humility that becomes wisdom. These traits become advantages no one can take from you. Your so-called disadvantages also shape how you see the world. Sun Tzu recognized that perspective is everything. The general who sees only difficulty loses, while the general who sees hidden opportunity wins. Modern challenges require the same vision. A broken heart can teach empathy. Financial struggle can teach discipline. Failure can teach patience. Being underestimated can teach inner confidence. Being alone can teach independence. These lessons cut deep, but they create a strength far more meaningful than anything easy circumstances could give you. There comes a moment when you realize the truth Sun Tzu lived by. The power was never in the circumstances, but in your ability to use them. Turning disadvantages into advantages is not about pretending hardship doesn't hurt. It's about refusing to let it define you. It is the act of using every wound as a weapon, every setback as a strategy, every pain as the push that catapults you to a place you never would have reached without it. Stay calm under pressure. Emotion clouds. Judgment. Pressure exposes the battlefield inside your own mind. When tension rises and emotions surge, clarity becomes the first casualty. Sun Tzu warned that a leader who lets emotion dictate his decisions becomes predictable, reckless, and vulnerable to mistakes that could have been avoided. In modern life, the same principle governs every high-stakes moment. Anger makes you speak too quickly, fear makes you retreat too soon, and anxiety makes small problems feel like overwhelming threats. Emotion distorts reality. Calmness restores it. In war, a single moment of panic could collapse an entire army. Today, that same panic can collapse your judgment. When you let pressure take over, you react impulsively instead of thinking strategically. You say things you regret, make decisions rooted in fear, or take actions that relieve tension but damage your long-term goals. Sun Tzu's wisdom reveals that the real enemy is not the situation itself, but the emotional storm that blinds you to what is truly happening. Calmness is not weakness. It is preparation. It is the ability to pause in the middle of intensity and see the field clearly while others lose themselves in chaos. Remaining calm under pressure requires discipline. It means refusing to let temporary emotions create permanent consequences. Sun Tzu taught that victory favors the mind that stays steady while others crumble. The same applies to modern challenges. When you keep your composure, you gain time. Time to think, time to observe, time to respond with intention instead of instinct. That small gap between emotion and action becomes your greatest strategic advantage. You see solutions that panic would have hidden. You notice opportunities that fear would have erased. You realize that pressure does not define the outcome. Your state of mind does. There is also a quiet strength in calmness that affects the people around you. When others are overwhelmed, the person who remains grounded becomes a stabilizing force. People trust someone who doesn't break under stress. They follow someone who communicates with clarity when everyone else is reacting blindly. Calmness becomes influence, and influence is power. This is exactly the type of psychological advantage Sun Tzu valued, winning not by force, but by presence. Calmness doesn't mean shutting off your emotions. It means mastering them. It means understanding that feelings are temporary. while the consequences of emotional decisions can last for years. When you steady your breath and let your thoughts reorganize, your judgment sharpens. You begin to distinguish what is urgent from what merely feels urgent. You stop defending your ego and start protecting your future. You move from emotional reaction to strategic action. Pressure will always come. Life will always test you. But Sun Tzu's wisdom shows that the person who stays calm gains control over both the situation and themselves. Clarity becomes their weapon. Composure becomes their armor. And victory becomes a matter of strategy, not emotion. Always have multiple plans, not just one. Victory has never belonged to the rigid. In warfare, a commander who relies on a single plan walks straight into defeat the moment reality shifts. And reality always shifts. Sun Tzu understood this deeply. He taught that conditions on the battlefield are unpredictable, that terrain changes, enemies adapt, and circumstances evolve without warning. A single plan may feel secure, but in truth, it is a fragile comfort. When life tests you, that plan can collapse instantly, leaving you scrambling with no direction. Flexibility, not certainty, is the true foundation of strength. In modern life, people often cling to one path, one outcome, one expectation. They pour everything into a single idea, one career path, one relationship, one goal, believing that commitment alone guarantees success. But life is far more fluid than that. Sun Tzu's wisdom reveals a harder truth. Those who prepare only one route are destroyed when that route is blocked. Having multiple plans doesn't mean doubting yourself. It means respecting the unpredictable nature of life. It is the difference between panic and adaptability, between collapse and resilience. A flexible mind is a strategic mind. When you create alternative plans, you expand your options and weaken fear. Fear thrives on the belief that there is only one way. When that belief breaks, fear dissolves. Sun Tzu valued generals who could adjust their tactics instantly, who could change formations, shift strategies, and redirect resources the moment the battlefield demanded it. Your life demands the same versatility. When one plan is threatened, you pivot smoothly rather than crumble. When unexpected obstacles appear, you adapt instead of surrendering. Planning becomes not a rigid blueprint, but a living map that moves with you. Multiple plans also protect your emotional balance. When people attach their identity to one outcome, they become fragile. If that outcome fails, they feel broken rather than redirected. Sun Tzu knew that attachment is a weakness in warfare because it blinds you to better opportunities. In your own life, multiple plans free you from obsession. They teach you that there is always another move, another direction, another way forward. This mindset doesn't just prevent failure, it creates confidence. You stop fearing the unexpected because you know you can navigate it. There is a quiet power in walking through life prepared for change. It makes you harder to shake, harder to trap, harder to defeat. People who only prepare one plan rely on hope. People who prepare multiple plans rely on strategy. One is fragile, the other is unstoppable. And as Sun Tzu emphasized, the adaptable warrior is the one who survives the shifting chaos of battle. Life will never unfold exactly as you expect. Plans will fail. People will change. Opportunities will disappear as quickly as they appear. But when you have multiple strategies ready, multiple paths, multiple responses, multiple ways to win, you remain in control no matter how unpredictable the world becomes. That is the essence of Sun Tzu's wisdom. Strength is not in the plan itself, but in the ability to create many. Remove chaos from your own life before confronting external chaos. In war, an army in disarray cannot defeat an enemy, no matter how skilled or courageous its soldiers may be. Sun Tzu warned that disorder within your own camp is more dangerous than the forces waiting on the battlefield. When your foundation is unstable, every threat feels larger, every obstacle feels heavier, and every decision becomes clouded by confusion. In modern life,
This principle is just as unforgiving. If your inner world is chaotic, your emotions unsettled, your priorities unclear, your habits undisciplined, then every external challenge will feel like an impossible war. You cannot win battles outside if you are already losing the ones within. Many people try to confront life's difficulties while carrying unresolved stress, emotional wounds, and mental clutter. They rush into conflicts, relationships, and responsibilities without first creating order in themselves. Sun Tzu would call this a guaranteed defeat. When your mind is scattered, you misjudge situations. When your heart is unsettled, you overreact to small problems. When your life lacks structure, everything becomes overwhelming. Chaos blinds you to strategy. It steals your focus, drains your strength, and makes you vulnerable to pressures that wouldn't shake you if you were grounded. Removing chaos begins with honesty. It means acknowledging the habits that drain you, the people who destabilize you, the thoughts that sabotage you, and the emotional patterns that keep you stuck. Sun Tzu believed that a wise leader must first inspect the state of his own troops before he dares to face the enemy. Likewise, you must examine your own life before confronting new challenges. Are you mentally prepared? Are you emotionally stable? Are you acting from clarity or from desperation? When you confront these questions, you reclaim power over the parts of your life you've ignored. Internal order creates external strength. When your mind is calm, you see solutions faster. When your priorities are clear, you stop wasting energy on distractions. When your emotions are steady, you are harder to provoke and harder to manipulate. This is the discipline Sun Tzu valued, the quiet preparation that allows you to step into the world with a stable foundation. You no longer react to chaos. You respond to it with strategy. You can walk into tense situations without being swallowed by them. You remain centered even when the world around you shakes. There is also a deeper transformation that occurs when you clear the chaos within. Confidence grows, focus sharpens, life feels less like a storm and more like a series of choices you can navigate with precision. You begin to realize that most external problems were intensified by internal disorder. Once the inside is steady, the outside becomes manageable. Sun Tzu's wisdom reveals a timeless truth. A peaceful mind is a powerful weapon. When you create order within yourself, you approach life with the discipline of a commander whose camp is organized, whose troops are ready, and whose spirit is prepared. Only then can you confront the world with strength instead of struggle. Efficiency is more powerful than volume. Sun Tzu often emphasized that wars are not won by sheer numbers or overwhelming force. They are won by precision, timing, and the intelligent use of resources. An army that moves loudly, wastes energy, and fights without strategy collapses long before the battle ends. In modern life, the same truth applies. Working harder is meaningless if your effort lacks direction. People often confuse movement with progress, believing that doing more automatically leads to achieving more. But Sun Tzu's wisdom cuts through this illusion. Efficiency, not volume, creates true power. You can fill your days with tasks, your mind with stress, and your schedule with endless activity and still achieve almost nothing. Volume gives the illusion of ambition, yet it drains your energy and scatters your focus. Efficiency, however, concentrates your effort like a blade. It allows you to accomplish in hours what others struggle to achieve in days. This is the strategy Sun Tzu revered, using minimal effort for maximum impact, striking only where it matters, and conserving strength for the moments that truly shape the outcome. In life, people often push themselves relentlessly, working late, saying yes to everything, chasing more responsibilities, more goals, more tasks. But this frantic pace leads to burnout, confusion, and mistakes. Sun Tzu taught that the wise commander values energy as a precious resource and uses it sparingly. Efficiency means understanding what actually moves you forward and eliminating the distractions that drain your power without advancing your purpose. It's the difference between a focused arrow and a scattered spray of bullets. Efficiency also requires clarity. When you know what you're aiming for, your actions become purposeful. When you don't, you drown in unnecessary effort. Sun Tzu believed that clarity determines strategy, and strategy determines victory. In modern life, this means deciding what truly matters, cutting away what doesn't, and refusing to measure your worth by how much you do. True achievement comes from doing the right things, not the most things. There is strength in conserving your energy. The world rewards those who seem endlessly busy, but Sun Tzu would call this an illusion of strength. Real power lies in the ability to act with precision, knowing exactly when to advance, when to wait, and when to redirect your energy entirely. Efficiency sharpens your mind, protects your well-being, and creates results that feel almost effortless because you are no longer fighting against your own exhaustion. Efficiency is also a form of psychological advantage. When you move with intention instead of chaos, you think clearer, respond smarter, and remain harder to overwhelm. Your decisions improve. Your stress decreases. You turn consistent, deliberate effort into progress that compounds over time. Those who rely on volume eventually burn out. Those who rely on efficiency rise steadily, quietly, and powerfully. Sun Tzu's wisdom reminds you that energy is finite, and victory belongs to those who learn how to use it wisely. Efficiency transforms your life from constant struggle into strategic movement. It is not about doing less. It is about doing what matters most. Keep your intentions private. Reveal little. In The Art of War, Sun Tzu warns that the moment your plans become visible, they become vulnerable. An opponent who knows your intentions can predict your movements, disrupt your strategy, or strike where you are weakest. Modern life reflects this truth with painful accuracy. The more you reveal your goals, your insecurities, your next steps, the more you expose yourself to interference, judgment, and resistance. Keeping your intentions private is not secrecy born from fear. It is strategy born from wisdom. It protects your direction, your energy, and your momentum from being diluted by the wrong eyes and the wrong voices. The world today encourages constant sharing. People announce their plans before they take action, broadcast their dreams before they build foundations, and reveal their vulnerabilities to audiences that have no loyalty to them. Sun Tzu would see this as a general shouting his battle plan across the field before the fight begins. Once your intentions are exposed, others can influence them, sometimes subtly, sometimes aggressively. Doubt creeps in through other people's opinions. Jealousy arises from those who fear your growth. Sabotage appears from those who feel threatened. Even well-meaning advice can derail your clarity. Keeping your intentions private shields you from these external disruptions long enough to establish your own footing. Sun Tzu valued the element of unpredictability. He believed that a force becomes powerful when its next move cannot be easily guessed. In life, the same principle strengthens you. When you reveal little, people cannot use your ambitions against you. They cannot anticipate your progress or prepare obstacles to slow you down. Your silence becomes a form of control, your own private terrain where you develop in peace. And as you move quietly, you conserve energy that would have been wasted defending your choices, explaining your motives, or seeking approval from people who were never meant to understand your path. There is also a psychological depth to this lesson. When you keep your intentions private, your mind stays more focused. Speaking about plans often gives a false sense of accomplishment, tricking the brain into feeling satisfaction before the work is done. Sun Tzu understood that discipline thrives in environments where focus is protected. Silence keeps your ambition sharp. It forces you to act rather than talk. It prevents your dreams from becoming diluted by premature exposure, and it allows your growth to unfold naturally without external pressure reshaping it into something
that pleases others instead of fulfilling you. Keeping your intentions private does not mean isolating yourself. It means choosing consciously who earns the right to hear your plans. It means revealing your moves only when they are strong enough to stand on their own. It means trusting your strategy more than you trust external validation. Sun Tzu's wisdom reveals the deeper truth. A quiet path is often the strongest one. When you move in silence, your results become your voice, your actions become your proof, and your progress becomes undeniable, arriving without warning, unchallenged, and fully formed. Anticipate the moves of others by understanding their motivations. Warfare is not won by guessing, it is won by foresight. Sun Tzu taught that the most powerful generals were not those who reacted the fastest, but those who understood their opponents so deeply that their moves became predictable. He emphasized that every action on the battlefield is driven by an underlying reason: fear, ambition, pride, desperation, greed, loyalty, or survival. When you understand what motivates someone, their next decision is no longer a mystery. It becomes almost inevitable. Modern life follows this same psychological battlefield. People rarely act without reason. Their words, choices, and behaviors are shaped by hidden motives. When you learn to see those motives clearly, you gain the ability to anticipate their next step long before they take it. Most people look only at actions, not the forces behind them. They get surprised when someone betrays them, withdraws, lashes out, or changes direction suddenly. But these moves were never sudden at all. Sun Tzu taught that a wise leader studies the heart of his opponent, not just his movements. In everyday life, this means observing people with curiosity rather than assumption. Why do they want what they want? What are they afraid of losing? What are they trying to gain? What belief or insecurity shapes their behavior? When you understand someone's true motivation, their choices, past, present, and future, snap into focus like pieces of a larger strategy. This understanding gives you an immense strategic advantage. When you know what motivates someone, you can predict what will provoke them, what will calm them, what will tempt them, what will scare them, and what will move them to action. You stop being blindsided by behavior that once felt confusing. You become harder to deceive because you recognize when someone's words and intentions do not align. You see through manipulation, charm, aggression, and emotional theatrics because you understand the motive driving them. Sun Tzu valued this insight because it turns chaos into clarity. You stop reacting to surface-level actions and start responding to the truth beneath them. There is also a powerful emotional intelligence rooted in this principle. When you understand motivations, you become more empathetic. You realize that many people act out of pain, not malice, fear, not cruelty, insecurity, not arrogance. This doesn't excuse harmful behavior, but it explains it, and explanation gives you control. Sun Tzu taught that understanding neutralizes hostility because it allows you to influence outcomes with precision. In modern life, this becomes the ability to de-escalate conflict, guide conversations, and position yourself strategically in relationships, careers, and negotiations. Anticipation is not manipulation, it is awareness. It is the recognition that human beings are driven by deep emotional currents they often don't acknowledge. While others get swept away by those currents, you remain grounded, seeing the truth beneath the surface. Sun Tzu believed that the one who understands motivation gains the power to predict action, and prediction is the closest thing to mastery in both war and life. When you learn to read people not just by what they do, but by why they do it, you gain insight that can change the entire direction of your life. You stop being surprised. You stop being unprepared. You move through the world with the strategic calm of someone who sees the next move long before it comes. Build strong foundations before taking bold actions. Bold moves may look impressive, but without the right foundations beneath them, they collapse under their own weight. Sun Tzu understood this deeply. In warfare, rushing into ambitious attacks without preparation, resources, or structure was the fastest way to lose not only the battle but the entire campaign. Strength did not come from dramatic strikes. It came from solid groundwork, from knowing your troops, securing supplies, fortifying positions, and mastering the basics before attempting anything extraordinary. In modern life, the same law governs every pursuit. Big dreams mean nothing if the foundation supporting them is weak. People often chase bold actions because they crave rapid progress, recognition, or escape from their current situation. They leap into relationships without emotional maturity, start businesses without understanding their own discipline, take risks without learning the craft, or make promises their character cannot support. Sun Tzu would call these moves illusions of strength, gestures fueled by excitement rather than strategy. Without a strong foundation, bold actions become burdens, draining your energy, shaking your confidence, and pulling you into chaos you were not equipped to handle. Building a foundation requires patience, honesty, and humility. It means doing the unglamorous work, learning, practicing, planning, and strengthening the parts of yourself that no one sees. Sun Tzu believed that victory belonged to those who prepared long before the battle began. The drills, the training, the discipline, all the silent repetitions created an army capable of executing bold actions successfully. In your life, this means developing emotional resilience before entering intense situations, creating financial stability before taking big risks, understanding your values before making life-changing decisions, and mastering your craft before exposing it to the world. When your foundation is solid, bold actions transform from dangerous gambles into calculated moves. You act with intention, not desperation. You take risks supported by knowledge, not wishful thinking. You pursue opportunities with confidence because you know the structure beneath you can hold the weight of your ambition. This is the strategy Sun Tzu valued. Strength not shown through reckless leaps, but through disciplined preparation that makes boldness sustainable. There is also a deeper kind of freedom that comes from having a strong foundation. You are less shaken by setbacks because you're grounded. You are less influenced by pressure because you're prepared. You are less afraid of challenges because your footing is secure. People often envy bold, dramatic actions, but they overlook the layers of inner strength required to execute them well. Sun Tzu teaches that true boldness is never spontaneous. It is the natural expression of a solid base built over time. Without foundation, bold action becomes failure in disguise. With foundation, bold action becomes transformation. And when you take the time to strengthen what lies beneath your ambitions, you begin to move through life not as someone chasing risky victories, but as someone capable of shaping outcomes with the steady force of preparation and power. Avoid rushing. Speed without clarity is self-destruction. Sun Tzu warned that an army that moves too quickly, without understanding the terrain, the enemy, or its own condition, walks straight into disaster. Speed without clarity is not efficiency. It is recklessness disguised as action. Modern life glorifies urgency, pushing you to react fast, decide fast, achieve fast, and prove yourself fast. But the truth embedded in Sun Tzu's wisdom is timeless. When you rush, you stop thinking, you stop seeing, you stop strategizing, and in that blindness, you create mistakes that cost far more than the time you thought you were saving. Rushing is often a symptom of fear, the fear of missing out, of falling behind, of disappointing others, of confronting discomfort. But when fear drives your speed, your judgment becomes distorted. You skip steps that matter, make commitments you can't sustain, enter situations you're not prepared for, or chase outcomes you don't truly understand. Sun Tzu believed that a single misstep, taken in haste, could undo months of careful preparation.
In your life, rushing leads to the same kinds of self-inflicted wounds: burnout, regret, damaged relationships, wasted opportunities, and a sense of constantly being overwhelmed. Clarity is what transforms speed into strength. Without it, speed is chaos. With it, speed becomes power. Sun Tzu often prepared meticulously before taking action, ensuring every move was grounded in observation and purpose. This preparation allowed him to strike swiftly and effectively when the moment was right. In modern terms, moving fast is only valuable when you know exactly what you are moving toward and why. Clarity creates direction. Direction creates confidence. Confidence creates meaningful momentum. Rushing skips all these steps and leaves you running without knowing where or why. There is also a deeper psychological truth at work. When you rush, you disconnect from yourself. You override your intuition, ignore your internal signals, and drown out the quiet voice that could guide you toward wiser decisions. You operate from adrenaline instead of intention. Sun Tzu valued awareness above acceleration because awareness reveals danger before it becomes visible to others. When you choose clarity over speed, you place yourself in that same strategic position, able to foresee problems, avoid traps, and choose paths that align with your long-term vision rather than your short-term pressure. Slowing down is not the same as falling behind. It is the discipline of someone who wants to win the real war, not just the momentary battles. Sun Tzu understood that patience is not passivity, it is preparation. It allows you to gather information, calm your mind, and refine your approach. In today's world, it means giving yourself enough breathing room to think clearly, act deliberately, and avoid destroying your progress with impulsive decisions. People who rush burn out. People who see clearly move with a strength that is sustainable, intentional, and ultimately unstoppable. Sun Tzu's philosophy reminds you that speed without clarity leads to destruction, but speed with clarity creates victory. The goal is not to slow your life. It is to sharpen your direction so that when you do move fast, you move with purpose instead of panic. Never underestimate competitors or obstacles. Sun Tzu repeatedly warned that the quickest path to defeat is assuming the enemy is weak, incapable, or unprepared. Overconfidence blinds a commander, dulls his awareness, and leads him to walk straight into dangers he never bothered to anticipate. In modern life, this same arrogance appears in quieter ways, dismissing people because they seem less experienced, ignoring challenges because they seem small, or assuming success because things have always gone your way. Underestimation creates a false sense of safety, and Sun Tzu teaches that nothing is more dangerous than feeling safe when you should be alert. When you underestimate someone, you stop paying attention. You overlook details, rush through decisions, and approach challenges with half your strength because you believe the outcome is guaranteed. This is exactly how people are blindsided. Jobs they thought were secure vanish overnight. Relationships they assumed would last fall apart. And opportunities they thought no one else could take suddenly belong to someone who simply prepared better. Sun Tzu understood human nature deeply. When you assume the path will be easy, you fail to prepare for the real battle ahead. Obstacles, too, become far more threatening when underestimated. Small problems grow quietly until they are too large to control. Minor conflicts turn into emotional wars because they were ignored for too long. Financial concerns swell into crises, health issues worsen, and toxic people gain influence, all because the early signs were dismissed. Sun Tzu believed that preventing trouble is easier than eliminating it later. Modern life follows the same law. Obstacles you face early with respect become manageable. Obstacles you shrug off become disasters. There is wisdom in approaching every situation with humility. Sun Tzu taught that you must respect the potential of every opponent, not fear them, but acknowledge their capacity to harm you. In today's world, opponents take many forms: unexpected competitors, personal weaknesses, hidden blind spots,
or patterns you haven't broken yet. When you respect these forces, you prepare thoughtfully. You think ahead. You anticipate challenges instead of reacting to them in panic. You become sharper, more adaptable, and more aware of the subtle shifts happening around you. Underestimation also prevents growth. When you assume you already know the outcome, you stop learning. You stop improving. You treat challenges as annoyances rather than opportunities to sharpen your skill and deepen your resilience. Sun Tzu believed that a warrior must constantly refine himself, and this refinement only happens when you take every threat seriously enough to rise above it. Respecting your challenges transforms them into catalysts, pushing you further than comfort ever could. There is no weakness in acknowledging the strength of your obstacles or the potential of your competitors. There is only strategy. Recognizing that anything can surprise you keeps your mind alert and your decisions grounded in reality rather than ego. Sun Tzu's timeless lesson reveals the truth modern life often forgets. The moment you underestimate something is the moment you give it power over you. Stay aware, stay humble, and you turn every challenge into a winnable battle long before it ever begins. Leverage strengths rather than fixating on weaknesses. Battles are won by amplifying what you do best, not by obsessing over what you lack. Sun Tzu taught that an army should never attack where it is weak. It should strike with the full force of its strengths. He warned that focusing on deficiencies drains energy, lowers morale, and blinds a leader to the power already in his hands. In modern life, people often make this mistake without realizing it. They pour endless effort into fixing every flaw, polishing every imperfection, and comparing themselves to others until their confidence erodes. But Sun Tzu's wisdom reveals a truth most overlook. Your greatest victories will come from the skills, qualities, and instincts you already possess, strengths that, when amplified, make weaknesses almost irrelevant. Weaknesses feel urgent because they expose vulnerability, but strengths create momentum. When you lead with what you are naturally good at, your creativity, discipline, emotional intelligence, communication, resilience, or strategic thinking, you generate results faster and with less wasted effort. Sun Tzu believed that the most efficient path to victory is the one that uses existing power, not forced effort. In your own life, this means recognizing where your potential is strongest and building your strategy around that. It means understanding that mastery comes from deepening your advantages, not endlessly patching every gap. Focusing on strengths does not mean ignoring weaknesses. It means refusing to let them define you. Sun Tzu understood that every army has flaws, just as every person has limitations. But he also knew that weaknesses matter far less when your strengths are leveraged intelligently. When you use your advantages with precision, they become shields that protect you from areas where you're less capable. Modern life works the same way. Your strengths can carry you through situations your weaknesses could not withstand. They give you confidence, direction, and the ability to make decisions from a place of power rather than insecurity. This approach also transforms your mindset. When you focus on shortcomings, you operate from fear. You make choices to avoid failure rather than to create success. But when you focus on strengths, you operate from expansion. You become more willing to take risks, to pursue opportunities, to believe in your trajectory. Sun Tzu valued leaders who inspired confidence in themselves and their troops, and nothing builds confidence more effectively than knowing you are leaning into what you excel at. Strength creates identity. It creates clarity. It creates momentum that weakness alone could never offer. There is also a strategic elegance in this principle. When you stop trying to be good at everything, you free yourself to become exceptional at the things that matter most. You begin shaping a life where your strengths are your weapon, your voice, and your advantage. Others may scatter their energy trying to fill every gap, but you consolidate yours where it counts. And, as Sun Tzu taught repeatedly, Concentrated power is far more effective than diluted effort. Your strengths are not accidents. They are signals of where you are meant to rise. When you amplify them, they become paths to victories you never imagined. Victories won not by eliminating every weakness, but by unleashing the full force of what already makes you powerful. Know when to advance and when to retreat. Every battle, whether on ancient fields or in modern life, is shaped not only by strength, but by timing. Sun Tzu taught that victory belongs to the one who knows exactly when to push forward and when to step back. A general who advances blindly wastes his troops. A general who retreats out of fear loses opportunities. Wisdom lives in the balance, the ability to read the terrain, sense the momentum, and choose actions that serve the long-term strategy rather than the impulses of the moment. In life, knowing when to advance and when to retreat becomes one of the most powerful forms of self-mastery. Many people push forward simply because stopping feels like failure. They chase relationships that are draining, pursue goals that no longer align with who they are, engage in arguments that go nowhere, or keep investing in situations that have already shown their true nature. This is the modern version of a reckless advance, forcing progress where progress is impossible. Sun Tzu warned that advancing without advantage is a guaranteed path to loss. When the environment is hostile, when resources are thin, when emotional reserves are low, pushing harder does not bring victory. It brings collapse. On the other hand, many retreat not because it is strategic, but because it is comfortable. They step back at the first sign of difficulty, avoid confrontation when action is required, or abandon opportunities because fear whispers louder than courage. Sun Tzu taught that retreat is not cowardice when used wisely. It is repositioning. It is conserving strength. It is choosing a better moment, a better angle, or a better battlefield. Retreat becomes destructive only when it is driven by insecurity rather than insight. To master this balance, you must learn to read your own life the way Sun Tzu read terrain. When you sense momentum, when opportunities align, when support surrounds you, when preparation has strengthened you, that is the time to advance. It may still feel risky, but the ground beneath you is stable. When you sense resistance that is not worth overcoming, when the situation drains more than it gives, when the environment is stacked against you, when emotion threatens to sabotage your clarity, that is the time to step back, reassess, and regroup. Knowing when to advance requires courage. Knowing when to retreat requires wisdom. Together, they form strategy. Sun Tzu believed that the strongest warriors were not the ones who fought constantly, but the ones who fought selectively, striking only when the moment promised real gain. In your life, this translates into choosing not to waste your energy on people who won't grow, situations that won't change, or battles that cost more than they're worth. There is power in moving forward at the right moment, but there is equal power in stepping back without shame. When you follow this rhythm, advancing with intention and retreating with intelligence, you stop living impulsively and begin living strategically. You conserve your energy, protect your peace, and increase your impact. And slowly, your life begins to move in a pattern that mirrors Sun Tzu's greatest victories, not won by force, but by timing. Protect your resources and energy. Sun Tzu taught that an army's strength is not measured only by its size, but by the condition of its resources, its supplies, its stamina, its morale. A commander who wastes his provisions or exhausts his soldiers invites defeat long before the battle begins. In modern life, your resources and energy play the same role. They are the fuel behind every goal, every relationship, and every decision. When they are drained, your clarity fades, your resilience weakens, and your ability to face challenges collapses. Protecting them is not selfish, it is strategic survival. People often give themselves away too easily. They pour energy into arguments that don't matter, relationships that take but never replenish, jobs that consume without rewarding, and habits that drain more than they provide. This scattering of effort mimics an army marching endlessly, with no rest, no strategy, no replenishment. Eventually, the soldiers break. The same happens to you. Sun Tzu understood that exhaustion is one of the most dangerous enemies because it creeps in silently, disguised as dedication or responsibility, until suddenly you have nothing left to give. Your energy is a finite resource. Every thought, decision, obligation, and emotion costs something. When you don't guard it intentionally, the world will take more than it returns. People will drain your time. Stress will drain your strength. Obligations will drain your focus. Sun Tzu believed in preserving strength for the battles that truly mattered. In your life, this means learning when to say no, when to step back, when to rest, and when to walk away. It means refusing to exhaust yourself trying to please everyone or fix everything. True strategy lies in conserving your power, not proving you can survive without it. Protecting your resources also requires awareness. You must know what energizes you and what depletes you. You must recognize which relationships support your growth and which drain your spirit. You must identify habits that strengthen your mind and ones that quietly destroy your vitality. Sun Tzu studied every factor that influenced the outcome of a battle, and you must study yourself with the same curiosity. Energy leaks often hide in the smallest places. Overthinking, engaging in meaningless conflict, maintaining unhealthy attachments, or chasing goals that don't belong to you. Once you see these drains clearly, you reclaim the power they once stole. There is also a deeper layer to this wisdom. When you protect your energy, you sharpen your ability to act with intention. You stop moving through life on autopilot. You stop allowing stress to dictate your choices. Your focus becomes stronger because it is no longer scattered. Your emotional stability improves because you're no longer stretched thin. Your confidence grows because you feel grounded instead of depleted. Sun Tzu valued readiness above recklessness, being prepared, balanced, and strong when the crucial moment arrived. Protecting your energy creates that readiness. You are at your strongest, not when you give everything, but when you guard what matters most. Resources can be replenished, but only if you honor their limits. Energy can be restored, but only if you stop letting the world drain you without your permission. Sun Tzu's wisdom teaches that victory belongs to the one who knows how to conserve strength, not waste it. And in modern life, protecting your resources is the strategy that keeps you capable, clear-minded, and powerful enough to face whatever battles lie ahead. Use terrain, your environment, to your advantage. In life, context matters. Sun Tzu taught that battles are not won purely by strength, courage, or even strategy. They are won by understanding the terrain. A wise general studies every hill, river, path, and shadow because the landscape itself can become a weapon. In modern life, terrain isn't physical soil, but the environment you operate in, the people around you, the culture you're part of, the timing, the opportunities, the social dynamics, and the limitations you're navigating. Sun Tzu's wisdom reveals a powerful truth. When you understand the context you're in, you stop fighting against the environment and start using it to lift you forward. Most people overlook the power of their environment. They push themselves harder instead of stepping back to analyze the ground beneath their feet. They try to succeed in spaces that drain them, argue in environments that amplify conflict, or pursue goals in contexts that limit their potential. Sun Tzu would call this fighting uphill, exhausting, costly, and avoidable. When you understand your terrain, you begin to see where the ground is level, where the path is easier, and where your strengths naturally fit. You stop forcing progress and start positioning yourself where progress happens naturally. Your environment affects everything: your energy, your decisions, your motivation, your clarity. A toxic workplace can destroy your confidence. A supportive mentor can accelerate your growth. A chaotic home can cloud your judgment. A peaceful routine can make you sharper and more strategic. Sun Tzu recognized that terrain shapes outcome, and in modern life, the terrain of your mind, your relationships, and your surroundings determine how effectively you move toward your goals. When you ignore this, you work twice as hard for half the results. There is power in adapting to the environment rather than resisting it. Sun Tzu often won battles by studying the terrain so precisely that he could anticipate how the enemy would move in your life. This means reading situations carefully, understanding the emotional climate of a conversation, the culture of the room you're in, the unwritten rules of the opportunity in front of you. When you understand the dynamics, you become strategic instead of reactive. You choose the right time to speak, the right moment to act, and the right environment to pursue your ambitions. Your terrain also includes the internal environment, your mental state. Some challenges require stillness, others require momentum. Some moments demand patience, others demand decisive action. Sun Tzu would say that knowing the terrain within is just as important as knowing the terrain around you. When you understand your emotional landscape, you know when to push, when to rest, and when to change direction entirely. Using your terrain to your advantage doesn't mean manipulating your surroundings. It means aligning with them. It means choosing environments that amplify your strengths instead of your weaknesses. It means stepping into spaces where your potential has room to grow. It means positioning yourself where success feels like a natural extension of the environment rather than a constant uphill fight. Sun Tzu's wisdom cuts through the noise. Strategy is not just about what you do, but where you do it. And when you master your terrain, internal and external, you turn the entire environment into an ally that quietly carries you toward victory. Avoid predictable patterns. Predictability is a silent vulnerability. Sun Tzu taught that once an enemy can anticipate your movements, your strategies lose their power, your defenses weaken, and your defeat becomes only a matter of timing. On the battlefield, repetition made armies easy targets. In modern life, the danger is just as real, but far more subtle. When you fall into patterns, emotional patterns, behavioral patterns, conversational patterns, relationship patterns, you make yourself easy to read, easy to manipulate, and easy to control. The world learns exactly what buttons to press, how you will react, and where you are most vulnerable. But the wisdom of Sun Tzu reveals a path to strength. Break predictability, and you reclaim your power. People often mistake routine for stability. They repeat the same responses, accept the same treatment, fall into the same traps, and make the same decisions because predictability feels safe. But Sun Tzu understood that the enemy studies not your strengths, but your habits. In your own life, those enemies may be toxic people, systems that take advantage of you, emotional triggers, or self-destructive tendencies that exploit your patterns. When you respond the same way every time, you are not acting. You are being controlled by your own automation. The moment you choose unpredictability, you break the grip of those old forces. Avoiding predictable patterns begins with self-awareness. You must notice the cycles you keep repeating, the arguments that always end the same way, the people you always attract, the opportunities you always avoid, the emotions that always hijack your choices. Sun Tzu valued generals who could see their own patterns as clearly as they saw their opponents. Once you recognize your predictable behaviors, a new freedom emerges, the freedom to choose differently, a different reaction, a different decision, a different tone, a different boundary. Small shifts can disrupt entire patterns. Unpredictability also creates psychological leverage. When others cannot predict how you will respond, they cannot easily provoke, manipulate, or corner you. Sun Tzu used deception and misdirection, not as trickery, but as protection. He made his movements difficult to read, so opponents could never prepare against him. In modern life, this translates into emotional composure when someone expects anger, silence when someone expects argument, walking away when someone expects surrender, or standing firm when someone expects collapse. These shifts disrupt the expectations of others and return control to you. Breaking predictable patterns doesn't mean becoming chaotic. It means becoming strategic. It means understanding that your greatest advantage comes from being flexible, adaptable, and mentally agile. When life changes course, you flow with it instead of becoming trapped by routine. When challenges appear, you respond with creativity instead of repetition. When people test your boundaries, you show them that you are no longer predictable, no longer easy to read, and no longer easy to break. Sun Tzu's wisdom is a reminder that power comes from movement, unexpected, precise, and intentional. When you stop living in predictable cycles, you stop living reactively. You step into a life shaped by strategy, not habit. And in that shift, you become someone who cannot be anticipated, controlled, or conquered.